Just let us know when we're live.
Or something. Are you on?
Good evening and welcome to tonight's meeting of the Lunenburg Select Board. It is Tuesday, January 10th, 2023. In accordance with the requirements of the open meeting law, please be advised that this meeting is being recorded and broadcast live over the Lunenburg Public Access channel, on Facebook Live, on the Public Access Facebook page, and will be uploaded to the Lunenburg Access YouTube channel after the meeting. The agenda lists all topics which may be discussed at the meeting and are those reasonably anticipated by the chair. Votes may be taken as a result of these discussions. Not all items listed may in fact be discussed, and other items not listed may also be brought up for discussion to the extent permitted by the open meeting law. Please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. This evening, I'd like to note that we have Selectman Lou Franco attending remotely. He's visible on the screen behind us. He will be participating. Due to his remote participation, all votes tonight will be a roll call vote. On November the 8th, the Select Board voted to effectively decrease the tax rate from $17.19 to $14.62 per $1,000 of value. For fiscal year 2023, overall residential values increased by about 23%, such that the average single-family home is valued at $470,164. The average single-family residential tax bill is $6,873.80 per year and is approximately $438 per household more than the last fiscal year. The average single-family home has realized a 52% increase in value over the past 5 years, and the average single-family home has seen their property taxes increase by about 19% over the same period. Over the past week, members of the Select Board and I have received communications from residents around Hickory Hills, Lake Shirley, and Whalum, concerned about what is being reported as a significant increase in home and or property valuations and a corresponding spike in taxes due. Some residents have reported a 30% tax increase. Some have reported a 50% increase. And a few have reported taxes more than doubling or nearly tripling. The majority of the correspondence speaks to how such increases are astronomical, unaffordable, and how it negatively impacts one's ability to continue to remain in town for those working, raising a family, and for those in or near retirement. Many residents want to know why this has happened, why they weren't provided with any intimation that such an increase could even occur, and how this can be resolved before third quarter payments are due. This is obviously extremely troubling. The entirety of this board understands that tax increases have a disproportionate impact on seniors, retirees, and all those on fixed incomes or of limited means. It is why the Select Board intends to bring forth a bylaw at this spring's town meeting that will provide some tax relief to those seniors who've helped build our community and who want to remain here throughout retirement. For those who don't know, however, I want to clarify that while the Select Board has many functions, individual property assessments is not one of them. As per the town charter, the elected members of the Board of Assessors, answerable to the voters, as we are, has the duty to annually make fair cash valuations of all estate, real and personal, subject to taxation within the town. They then recommend and apply the rate this board sets to those valuations. The Board of Assessors also reviews abatements and all requests related to valuations and tax assessments. My colleagues and I think of Select Board meetings as the public forum for all residents. We understand that many people watch these meetings on TV and online, and that discussions here have influence elsewhere within town. I hope that tonight, and whenever it is necessary, my fellow neighbors and friends take advantage of the opportunity our democracy provides to let your voices be heard. Next week, When the assessor returns from paternity leave, he will attend this meeting and provide clarifications to help explain these valuations and will be available to answer general questions from the public. That will occur right after the meeting begins, and residents can attend and participate in person or remotely via Zoom. For tonight, the town manager will read a statement from our principal assessor, and then I will open the floor to public comments. I am suspending the general 15-minute time slot for public comments we normally allocate. Everyone who wants to speak tonight will have an opportunity. If on Zoom, you will need to raise your hand, and if in person, you will need to come to the podium. When recognized, please state your name and address, and please limit your comments to 3 minutes as best you can. We will conduct board comments following public comments. And now to the town manager.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Connect. Okay. As the chairman stated, this is a prepared notice from the principal assessor. The assessor's office, according to guidelines set forth by the Massachusetts Department of Revenue, must use market data to value each property in town at its full and fair cash value. One of these guidelines is to stay within a certain assessment to sales ratio. This means that properties similar to yours that sold in 2021, which is the year analyzed to reach 2023's values, are the basis for property valuations. The past couple of years has seen a significant increase in purchase prices, not only in Lunenburg, but statewide and nationally. This is the reason for the base increase in value across the board, but is also the reason for the corresponding decrease in the tax rate from $17.19 per thousand in 2022 to $14.62 per thousand in 2023. State law prevents towns from taking advantage of this market shift by collecting more taxes more than the annual increase. This means that an unusually high increase in taxes on your property is tied to sales of properties similar to yours. Again, according to DOR guidelines, we must make these changes to assess values according to actual sales. This year, we saw unprecedented increase in sale prices on waterfront property in Lunenburg. In order for us to assess waterfront properties correctly, we must use these actual sales to determine assessments. Otherwise, we would not be able to achieve the required assessment to sales ratio that the Department of Revenue requires. Any taxpayer who feels their assessment does not reflect the value of their home as of the assessment date of January 1st, 2022, is encouraged to file a real estate abatement no later than February 1st, 2023, along with any supporting evidence, such as sales of homes similar to yours, incorrect public record data, recently completed appraisals, etc. The Board of Assessors will then determine if your value is fair. Please keep in mind that your January tax bill does not necessarily reflect the dollar amount of your tax bills moving forward. Any fiscal year that an assessed value increase occurs, that increase is reflected only on the January and April bills, also referred to as actual bills. The July and October bills were preliminary and calculated based on the prior year's info. So your annual increase is condensed into 2 tax bills rather than spread across 4 bills. The best way to calculate what your annual taxes are is to multiply the assessed value by the $14.62 tax rate and divide by 1,000.
Thank you.
I just want to say something also. On a personal note, I'm extremely sympathetic to the many taxpayers that voiced their disbelief upon receiving the recent tax bill. As the assessor's office has done with all the calls, emails, and foot traffic coming to their office, I would encourage everyone to file an abatement if you do not feel your value is fair, and that has to be done by February 1st to the Board of Assessors. As noted by the chairman, the principal assessor is currently out on paternity leave and returning on January 17th. He will be attending next week's meeting to answer detailed questions. I myself will do everything possible to help guide taxpayers through the process by relaying important information from the assessors and seeking answers to your questions.
All right, so as we move into our public comment period, a couple just kind of generalized ground rules. So the first is all those wearing a hat in the presence of the American flag, I first ask you to remove those. Second, that when you come to the mic, that you will need to state your name and address. We do not typically have people in the audience shout out, so I'm trusting that we will maintain that tonight. We again will recognize everyone who would like to speak tonight. You will have an opportunity to speak. I ask for those comments to be limited to 3 minutes. I will not cut you off for the most part unless we're starting to get significantly beyond it. But we are certainly here to listen. As we noted, the Board of Assessors has authority in this area, but as the executive board of the town, we know that we represent the people and that this is the forum for you to come and say what you need to say. So with that, we will ask for anyone to come forward with a public comment. Mr. Fortune, good to see you this evening.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. John Fortune, 50 Hemlock Drive. I am also president of Hickory Hills Landowners, Inc. I'm speaking tonight on behalf of Hickory Hills Landowners, Lake Shirley Improvement Corporation, and I'm sure for all the waterfront property owners here in Lunenburg. I'd like to further discuss that November 8 meeting, if I could. There were a couple of comments I have on that. And that is listening to the recording, at 26 minutes into the recording, Mr. Alonso asked Mr. Carroll, was there any type of home or area of town that saw a larger increase in values than others? Mr. Carroll responded, and again I quote, not significantly this year. We did have a slight increase in land around the water that was justified by sales. That is something that likely will be addressed in next year's values. Not significantly. Slight increase. 50% is not a slight increase. I believe this board was misled during that meeting. Maybe not intentionally, but misled just the same. I cannot believe this board would allow taxes in a few areas of town to increase as much as they have and carry the burden for these people to carry the burden of those taxes, which you yourself, Mr. Chair, during that meeting also indicated is ultimately ending up in free cash. A few minutes later in the November meeting, again Mr. Alonso spoke and indicated to the public, your taxes are probably going up. Like all of you, I expect my taxes to go up. They're going to go up every year. We have to pay for the running of the town. But they need to go up for everyone, not just a few. And certainly not this lopsided of a number. It is this board that voted to approve that new tax plan. You can also vote to repeal it and go back to the previous plan now that you see there were a few areas of town that actually were significantly impacted, much more than the others. Look closely at the people here tonight. These people live in the waterfront homes. Some of them, like me, purchased their home to retire in. Others have lived there many years of their lives. Many on our lakes are fixed income, but they are also volunteers that do the work of this town. They represent former select board members, caucus committee, council on aging, Salvation Army, Lions Club, food pantry, on and on and on, right? Few of us can afford a significant increase in taxes like this. For those that can afford to buy $1 million home, tax them for $1 million home. But for the rest of us who purchased an average price home, don't tax us like we are millionaires. We are not millionaires. And if you stick to this current plan, you will simply drive good people away from Lunenburg. I look forward to your vote to repeal this current tax plan. Thank you.
Hello.
Yeah.
Ken Chans.
Mr. Chans.
Sorry.
I just asked the chair if I can just make comments between that are just factual in nature. And I just want to say that the meeting of this board on November 8th is a tax classification hearing. And the only thing the Board of Selectmen have control over in that is whether we have a single tax rate, for all property owners, or we have a dual tax rate for businesses and residents. We don't approve or disapprove of the plan from the assessors because it's an elected body. They have that authority. So that's the only purview of that meeting, is whether we have a single tax rate or a split tax rate. That's the only thing that's decided in that classification hearing. I just want to be clear about that.
Understood? Okay. I just have something to read. My name's Kenneth Chans. I live on 17 Page Street and also 265 Sunset Lane. I have what may be a relatively unique position in being able to see both sides of this situation, given I'm a property owner both on the water and off the water. I'm also in a unique position that I'm in the midst of a construction project, and so that's required me to take out bank loans, which has caused me to get assessments of both properties professionally done. My Sunset Lane property, which is the lake, was appraised as a 2-bedroom, 1,080 square foot raised ranch over a 2.5-car garage, and it sits on 1.8 acres. The appraisal included an uninhabitable structure, which was the previous home on the property, which has since been demolished. The professional appraisal came in at $715,000, of course, because it's a lakefront property, but it's a little teeny ranch. The Lunenburg assessors evaluated this property during the same time frame and came up with a valuation of $1,104,200. That value is 54% higher than a professional assessment of the property. In contrast, my Page Street property was appraised as a 4-bedroom, 2,880 square foot colonial with a 2-car garage on 4.5 acres. It's nice. It abuts hundreds of acres of conservation land. The professional appraisal came in at $679,000, almost the same as the lake house. Much bigger house, though. The Lunenburg assessor evaluated this property at $579,500, which is 15% lower than the professional assessment. Basically, my lake property taxes went up significantly, and my non-lake property taxes actually went down, as did many others that I've heard. In spot checking other owners of non-lake and lake properties, I have found similar characteristics. The land values around the lake more than doubled. Mine and others went up 135%. And this drove overall valuations very high, whereas non-lake land values stayed relatively stable, resulting in modest property valuation increases. The significant increase in valuations around the lake led us to a lower tax rate, which in turn resulted in a relatively level tax treatment for the majority of homeowners in Lunenburg, in spite of their property values going up. Or said another way, the entire tax levy increase for 2023 fiscal year is being covered almost exclusively by lake property owners. The post-COVID phenomenon of unprecedented property value inflation was felt throughout the town. Properties previously worth $200,000 sold for $400,000. Properties previously worth $400,000 sold for $600,000 or higher. And yes, some properties on the lake previously worth only $600,000 or $700,000 sold for over $1 million. My concern is the assessor seems to have focused his attention exclusively on lake properties when it came to this phenomenon, possibly applying a blanket 135% increase to all land values. And by doing so, unfairly assigned a greater portion of the town's tax levy on lake property owners than he should have. Due to the significant difference between a professional assessment and the town assessor's assessment, I will, like many others, be filing for an abatement. But I'm asking the Board of Selectmen if they can investigate the practices followed by the assessor's office. Because I, like yourself, listened to and believed the assessor when he spoke at the select board meeting on November 8th, where Mr. Alonso asked, was there any type of home or area of homes that saw a larger increase in residential value than others? And the assessment answer was not significant this year. We did have a slight increase in land value around the water. My land value saw a 135% increase, as did many others. I think I reflect many fellow property owners' sentiment when I tell you we don't feel a 135% increase in value is slight. We also don't feel a 30 to 50% tax increase is not significant. As such, I think the select board and the townspeople have been misled by the assessor's tax impact summary prior to their vote to approve the single tax rate levy proposal. And I would like to understand if the town or the Board of Selectmen are going to do anything about it. Thank you for hearing my concerns in this situation.
Good evening. My name is Mary Perkins. I live at 62 Ruth Street, but I also own a vacant lot of land on 76 Ruth Street. I have lived in Lunenburg for 30 years, building my forever home in 1993 on beautiful Lake Shirley. And why is Lake Shirley so beautiful and a place now that everybody really wants to live? It wasn't so years ago. It was because we pay a voluntary dues of $300 and we fundraise. We spend somewhere around $35, $40, $50, and sometimes $50,000 a year for our weed control and other expenses to keep our lake clean. I lived here when the lake was not usable. You could not get your boat through the weeds. We raked wheelbarrows upon wheelbarrows out of the lake off our beaches. In 2006, Gerald Smith from the Aquatic Control Technology was contacted by the LSIC, and this is their report. During the summer of 2006, our recent observations show that the condition of the lake with respects to nuisance algae and aquatic weed growth has been deplorable. Recreational use of the lake is severely impaired, and the safety for swimmers is being jeopardized to the poor clarity. Under the conditions of the algae bloom of this intense magnitude and long duration will have adverse effects on the lake's fish and the wildlife community. That was written to Mr. Sam Ramondelli in 2006. At the time, Les Smith was the president. He pleaded with the lake residents. The value of our homes, the health of our lake, your support is vital to be a quality experience in the future for our children, our grandchildren, and their children. The lake is part of our lives. What did we do? We pound the streets for sponsors. I personally have gotten $1,000 out of Keating's as a sponsor. We hold golf tournaments and we fundraise. It is us that buy those raffle tickets and put the foursomes in. We have brought our lake life back. We have bald eagles and we have lots of wildlife. And now, that is why everyone wants to live here. But the money from our weed treatment comes from our own lake residents. It doesn't come from the town. It does not come from the real estate taxes. And now with these astronomical rate hikes, we won't have the disposable income to buy those raffle tickets, to put in those foursomes in the golf tournaments. And I'm sure the $300 voluntary dues are not going to be being paid by a majority of the residents. And even more, the town wants to capitalize on our beautiful lake and put a boat ramp in my little neighborhood. Will the town pay our lake dues and help us with the fundraising? Well, that's a discussion for another time. I own 2 properties. The land my house sits on, just the land my house sits on, went from $250,000 in 2021 to almost $600,000. 136% increase on the overall assessment. The overall assessment, including my house, went up 66%. My empty lot is just an empty lot. It barely can get to the lake from the lot. I like it because I don't have a neighbor. I don't plan on doing anything with that property. But that property tax increased from $232,000 to $545,000. 135% increase for a vacant lot of land. No septic, no well, no town services. The taxes for both my properties, just for Q3 and Q4, is $7,733. For the total of 6 months that I will owe for those taxes, it's $15,467 in 6 months. $2,600 a month just for my 6 months of property taxes. I'm 64 years old. I'm ready to retire. I'm single. I live by myself. How can I afford this? I am being pushed out of the property that I plan to die in. I am being priced out of my home that I spent countless hours of time volunteering my personal monetary donations to make our lake life beautiful. I heard C.J. Carroll, the principal assessor, during the 11/8/22 meeting tell you the lake properties increased slightly. And he didn't want a split tax rate because he thought a 50% tax rate increase was too much for our commercial properties. But I guess 135% for the lake is fine. And on the lake, for most of us, while some was 135% for me for my empty lot, most are having 50 to 75% for our slight increase. In 2021, there were only six homes on Lake Shirley, out of a total of approximately 250 plus homes. Across all three lakes, only 14 homes were sold on the lake, while 160 homes sold in total. Obviously, the people that want to live on the lakes want to stay on the lakes because we didn't cash out. But because a very small number of only 14 families decide to cash out an unprecedented real estate market, all three lakes now have to pay the price. I also think of all the town volunteers that serve on boards and associations and committees that live on these various lake properties. Where will the town get the volunteers when we're all forced out of our homes because we can no longer live in Lunenburg? I am sad. I am sad that I may no longer be able to live in my forever home. I am sad that middle-class residents like me can no longer afford to live in our lakes, but we have to now make room for the very rich and often out-of-state people to come and live on my beautiful Lake Shirley that I worked so hard to build. But I am mostly sad because I feel that my beloved town of 30 years has let me down. Could you afford $7,733 a quarter, almost $25,000 plus a year in real estate taxes? Can you? I can't. Thank you for your time.
Hi, how are you? Joanna Belotta, 362 Sunset Lane. My taxes went up like everybody else's. It was the same formula used on waterfront per acre. So I'm not going to talk about that. I'm upset about that. Please, I can't afford it either. My concern is this happened to the lake residents about 10 years ago. And we had the luxury of being notified and invited to a collaborative meeting to understand why it was going to happen, what the percentages were, how it was all cumulative. So when you got that tax, you knew it was coming, you knew to prepare, and you were able to have these conversations before bills went out. I don't want to live in a community where I'm not chatted with, that my leaders don't want to collaborate with me on what's going to happen to me that's going to really impair the way I now live my life. If I have a $15,000 tax bill a year that went from $6,000, that's impacting my life. So I'm really upset that we didn't have that conversation prior to this. So now we're reaching out and saying, okay, we're going to file appeals, we might have to take class action. All these things are spinning through all these different media circuits that we're now in. So it's simple. Let's pull everybody together and have a meeting to discuss what all our options are. So we're all working together as lake communities on this issue. So we say, okay, where can we have these meetings? Well, we'll try the Bull Run, we'll try the Knights of Columbus, and we'll try what our taxes pay for, our town buildings. And we want to do it on Martin Luther King Day because our elderly, myself, don't do good at night driving. So we want something that we can do at like 3, 4 o'clock so they can come and be part of that conversation. Most people get out at 5. Martin Luther King Day would be the perfect day. The schools are closed, it won't impact our children, to use one of our facilities. No, we can't open a building for you on Martin Luther King Day. No, we'll pay for the custodian. If a custodian has to be there, we'll pay for it. I understand if it's a 4-hour minimum, we'll happily pay for that custodian to come let us use the facility. I've taken in kids from out of country. We go to the school, we have a big session, they open the school for that. I go to town meeting on Saturday, they open the school for that. They can't give us 2 hours to have a conversation with all these lovely people to figure that out. These are the things that I want to talk about, because as a community, we all need to work together, be collaborative, and those buildings are all of ours. So all these people should be able to ask, request, and be able to hold a meeting in one of our public buildings for 2 hours and talk about what our plan is. And we invite you, we invite the Board of Assessors, we're inviting Mr. Scher, we're inviting CJ. We want it to be collaborative and understand how we got here and what we need to do to move forward. Thank you.
Thank you, Joanna. Donna, good to see you.
My name is Donna Saya. I'm from 32 Sandy Cove Road on Little Hickory. And I make that distinction because Little Hickory does not have direct access to the big lake. We cannot put a pontoon boat on a dock in our backyards. We cannot get to the lake from there. And the assessments of our property, of our land values, is the same as what it is on the other lakes in town, from what I'm hearing, 135% increase. And when I look at and talk to my neighbors, and I look at the value of our house now, our property value went from $200,000 to $470,000. My next door neighbor, who lives in a much smaller house, my total value of my house is now $788,000. There is no possible way to get that kind of money on Hickory Hills Lake on Little Hickory. My neighbor in a much smaller house, mine is maybe 2,600 square feet. His is 1,500 square feet.
It's 1120, Donna.
1120? I stand corrected. His property value is listed at $757,000. So you're talking a very skewed set of numbers. And this 135% increase seems to be not taking into consideration the property itself, where it's located. I mean, the fact that it's 135% alone is unbelievable. We're still going through the results of a pandemic. It changed everything. It changed work schedules. It changed how people worked. People work from home. People are still working from home. Where I used to work, they're now asking people to come back 1 day a week. And that's 3 years later. So a lot of things have changed. People have moved to more desirable locations. I moved to a desirable location because I wanted a pleasant life. I chose this house. I do expect the property values to go up. I hope they go up. But I don't understand how something could blanketly go up in land value 135% and not have something wrong with that equation. So what I'm asking for is this to be looked into and to be questioned by the town select board, and to talk with the Board of Assessors and find out just why and how these numbers were made. The other suggestion I have is that, yes, we just went through a pandemic. Things are skewed. They are settling down. There are 2 houses on Zillow right now. Both have lowered one's land, one's a house. They've both been lowered in the last few months in value or selling price. When I looked on Zillow to see what the realtors estimate the house's value at, my neighbor, her house is estimated to sell for $398,000, which sounds great. But the town assessors have assessed her land only at $418,000. It's not sustainable. There is no way that this is correct. Somebody made an error. And I would really like it to be looked into. Thank you.
I'm John Tata. I live at 135 Flynn Road. I'm going to be brief. Number one, 2 years ago, I did a little research on the property values in my neighborhood and up towards the center of town. And Mr. Alonso, I pay $10. My land is valued $10 per acre higher than your land, same as your neighbor down the road that's on the assessor board. So I'm looking and saying, wow, I pay this. You folks get trash pickup. You get a road plowed. You get to have a mailbox at the end of your driveway. Mine's a half a mile down the road. I'm just aghast. I think after 40 years here in Lunenburg, when I see this, I feel betrayed. I spent a decade sitting in some of those chairs on various boards before I moved out of the town for a while, and I just can't fathom the abuse my fellow citizens are enduring right now, and I wish you'd take some action and do something positive about it. Thank you.
Paula Bertram, 312 Townsend Harbor Road. I am seeing the same type of increase that everyone has talked about, and quite frankly, it's unaffordable. My husband and I are approaching retirement. I have served on many boards in this community, many years of service, and now I'm potentially going to be forced out, as is my son, who purchased his home on Hickory Hills Lake. My question is a budgetary one. In the letter tonight from the assessors and the town manager is urging everyone to file an abatement. Each year when you do the budget, you put aside a certain amount of money for abatements. Given the hundreds of people that have been overtaxed, I am assuming that that number is going to be woefully short. What are the selectmen and the finance committee going to do to correct that? What is going to be the financial solution?
Thank you. Thank you, Paula.
Hi, my name is Joe Gaunt, 761 Flat Hill Road. I got home yesterday and I was appalled. My land value went from $249 to $788. The two tax bills that I got, I do have a question for you. You said that was for the full four quarters, not just the first two?
So the most recent tax bill is your actual tax bill. The last two were preliminary tax bills.
Okay, so the two that I got yesterday, which is $4,600 a quarter from $2,400 a quarter. I'm going to get two more $4,600 bills?
Yes.
No.
No, sorry.
So
Got another bill.
let me just explain.
Yes, thank
So
you.
when your final bill was determined, your final tax bill, which just happened in the last, at that meeting, okay, when it was finally done at the end of the year.
Mm-hmm.
The first two bills that you paid, Q1 and Q2, are estimated. You take those, the sum of those two, subtract it from when your actual bill is, and then you have 2 quarters to pay the difference. So the difference that you're getting, the increase in the difference is 2 times what it would be if it was spread around 4 quarters. So your actual estimate, if everything stayed the same, your actual estimate next year would be lower than what your Q3 and Q4 bill is now.
So, but the sum would be the same.
I want to remind the public, only the speaker at the podium is recognized as speaking.
Thank you.
Please continue.
Thank you, Tom. I appreciate that. So my taxes are $8,800 a year, going to $17,600 a year, which will increase my monthly payment over $729 from what I'm currently paying now in my mortgage. The land that I'm more concerned about I had an assessor come out maybe 6 years ago. I think that's the last time. And I brought her inside the house. She was just ready to do an assess outside. And I said, why don't you come inside, show you we haven't done anything. I haven't done anything in 23 years to that house except downstairs where we cut the basement in half and fixed it, which she had seen prior to. The value of my house went up an increase, which is fine, but I'm valued on a piece of property that caused to be $912,000 between property and the dwelling.
Would you mind just restating what your previous value was?
Sure, it was, I have it here, sorry. $529,200. That was between the two. We went from 279 to 2 on the dwelling to 342, which is a reasonable increase based on the house. I owned 1.7 acres I live on Flat Hill up here. It's a quarter mile from my back door where I walk out to the lakefront property, which I can't use because of some high water mark that was told when we moved in that you can't build a dock, you can't add sand, you can't do anything down there. So we have done nothing on that lake in 23 years. I just would want to know how an assessor can come out, drive by, look at a few numbers, and make an assumption that that's the value of my property. I am on my house and the area that I maintain, grass cutting, driveway, such, is just under an acre. So I would say close to more than almost half of my property is useless. It's woods. It goes right down to the lake. Can't use it. Can't build on it. Can't do anything with it. But yet it goes up that much. I'd entertain the assessor coming out to look at the house again if it's the same person. And I'd be glad to walk her through, or him, through the house to show him that there's been nothing done to the house. There hasn't been a house sold on, Flat Hill near me except for the one that they're demolishing next door, for probably 3 or 4 years. So that's what I'm asking. If someone could come out to my house, 761 Flat Hill Road, I'll make the time. I am retired for 3 or 4 years. My wife is retired. We're on a fixed income. This is like a sentence to sell, and I don't want to do that. Both our children and our entire family live in Lunenburg. We do not want to leave Lunenburg. I need your help. Thank you.
Good evening. My name's Malin Scott Foreman.
Malin, before you speak, we have Selectman Franco behind you, has his hand up. Selectman Franco.
Oh,
okay. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, I just wanted to, just for the last speaker's benefit, wanted to state that it's imperative that he file for an abatement. That will automatically trigger the assessors to come out and evaluate the property. So just that action alone will get somebody out there.
Thank you, Mr. Franco. Sir, please go ahead.
Malin Scott Foreman. I live at 9 Fire Road. Let's keep that in mind. 9 Fire Road, 15A. I don't receive many services from town. In 17 years, I have not had one single plow dropped on my road. It's 3/4 of a mile. I have to maintain it. I don't have town sewer. I don't have town water, which means I have to maintain a well as well as a septic tank. Not to mention plowing and sanding and taking care of my own private road. I don't have trash service and I don't have mail service. Everything I do has to be done in the neighborhood half a mile away. My house is only 480 square feet. That's 1 bedroom, 1 bath. I don't know where they came out with the assessors on this property. There's also 56 stairs to get to my water. So in order for me to use a little bit of the waterfront that I have, it's 56 stairs down. It's probably one of the worst properties on the lake. I was assessed that property now, that's only .33 acres, at almost $500,000. So if we multiply my .33 by 3 and give myself an extra acre, then that means my acre is worth $1.5 million. I'm just a simple man. I try to live within my means. I give to almost every organization in this town. Time, money, you name it. Me and my wife and my family have donated to all the places in town. I've served 6 years in the United States Navy, including in 2 different areas of operations. For my assessor to go from, I think it's $493,000 at .33 acres. I don't even know if there's an acre of land in Lunenburg, probably even including the acre that we're standing here, that's worth $1.5 million. $493,000 for .33 acres. 480 square foot house, 1 bedroom, 1 bath, valued at $600,000. I don't know if there's even a like house on the lake that you guys can come with a comparison to that. Anyway, I hope that you guys think about these things in the future and decide to repeal that. It's really hard for people that are living a certain way to be able to maintain that. Thank you.
Thank you. Before the next speaker goes, I just want to remind all those in attendance to please not speak while we have speakers at the podium here with us. We can all hear what is being said. And to those who are probably in the hallway, we just like to note that we can hear out there, so we also ask to keep the volume down there as well. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Jeffries. Tim Murphy, I live at 97 Island Road, and I certainly don't have as compelling an argument as the last gentleman who certainly did. My last quarter that I paid before this bill arrived, I owed $1,500. This quarter, I owe $3,200. And I got basically 3 weeks' notice that that's what it was going to be, since the postman can't seem to find a way to get the mail from this building all the way out to Island Road. Took him to January 9th at 5 o'clock to get it. But I want to talk about the abatement. So everybody's talking about, we're going to file an abatement, we're going to file an abatement, we're going to file an abatement. Well, first off, you have to file your abatement by February 1st. And you have to have your tax bill paid on February 1st. So you can't just file your abatement and wait to see if something's going to happen. You have to file your abatement, and the tax bill has to be paid for it to be considered. Then the assessors have time to review it. They can approve by looking at the problem that you've outlined. They can also deny it, of course, right out of hand, and they can take no action. If they take no action after 90 days, it's deemed denied. So it's going to be a long process. The other thing, as Ms. Bertram alluded to, money is set aside for possible abatements. So you've got 500 roughly houses in Hickory Hills and Lake Shirley that are affected by this increase. Set aside was $116,000. So if all 500 people got relief, and there are probably other places in town where people deserve abatements other than these good people, everybody gets $230. Well, that's not what people are looking for. So, as was pointed out earlier, Mr. Jeffries, if all the extra in the 2.5 levy is going into free cash, then we need to figure out what to do and not have so much money in free cash. Maybe we didn't need to increase 2.5 this year. Something has to change. I don't know what authority you've got, certainly not my purview, but you have a lawyer, and you've got to take a look at what you can do to fix this problem. And it's got to be fixed soon, because I'm talking to people that are telling me they can't sleep at night since they got their bill. That's pretty tough. And I'm talking to people, my house is 1,100 square feet. It's a tiny little house. I think people are going to think, oh, those rich people on the lakes, they've all got $1 million homes. They're all working in IT and making big bucks, right? So many of them have lived in these houses, since the 50s. And they bought them years and years ago. And they're not rich, and they're retired, and they're living in a 900 square foot, what was that, 400?
480 square foot.
480.
My house could fit 4 times in this room.
400 feet. And we're going to assess on some blanket formula that says it's on water. There you go. So I'm urging you, look at your free cash, figure out what you can do to make an adjustment in your town's budget to be able to fix this problem. Because the $116,000 set aside by the assessors, not going to cut it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Katie Kissel, 17 Manning, 82 Peninsula Drive. I have a question because I don't believe the assessment, the abatement, if you successfully get an abatement, I don't think that money is awarded until like January of the following year. Is that correct? If we file this year?
I'm gonna defer to Lou. So Lou Selectman Franco served on the Board of Assessors for over 10 years prior to joining this board. So Lou, the question coming to you is the timeline from when someone submits an abatement, if that's awarded, when does it apply?
Well, it is definitely not immediate. It's a protracted process for sure. Relief will not be immediate, even in the best scenario. And somebody alluded to it earlier. From the time an abatement application is filed till action must be taken on it, or else it's deemed denied, is 3 months right there. Then, if you do not get if the taxpayer does not get the relief that they're looking for, or thinks that the abatement decision is unjust, they can appeal to the appellate tax board, who then has another 3 months to act on it. So right there, you're looking at 6 months potentially on the process. And you're taxing my recollection a little bit. I did serve on the Board of Assessors for a number of years. You're talking way out. You're talking
January of next year.
Yeah, I mean, so that could be right. So it's certainly going to be no less than 9 months.
All right, and I just want to remind those who are in the hallway that the volume there has to be as quiet as the volume in here.
That's the audio from in here.
Okay.
Yes, it's a delay.
All right, got it. Thank you. I'm like, why am I hearing people laughing out there? All right, thank you.
So just so you know, there may be a real problem for a few of these people who need that to be abated and to get that money to get through this year rather than waiting.
Thank you. We want to make sure we call everyone up individually before we call someone back.
You have to pay your taxes on time to be able to apply to the tax appellate court. That's one of the conditions for you to be able to. So you need to make sure you pay your taxes by February 1st if you want to appeal that. I just wanted to.
Thank you.
I printed for people the appeal process, if anybody wants some secretary down.
All right. Before the next speaker speaks, so on our agenda tonight, later on this evening, we did have some interviews, appointments, reappointments, and resignations related to the 300th Anniversary Committee. We are going to reschedule those to next week's meeting. If anyone's in attendance who wants it to happen, we will do it tonight. But anyone here who needs to leave because this meeting is running late, we will reschedule those to next meeting. I do see some people here. If you are here after public comments, we will get to you. But anyone else that is on the list, we will get to you next week on that. Sir.
My name is Joel Swenson, 17 Ruth Street. Referencing 2 speakers ago, unfortunately, I do work in the IT industry. Specifically in the pharmaceutical realm, which is even worse. But the problem that I have with what occurred is when you actually look at the sales data, there were about 160 homes sold in Lunenburg in 2021, and The lake properties were only 14. So the percentage of lake properties that were actually sold were only 8% of the total, which was used to make a decision to increase the tax, to increase the assessment value specifically on the lake individuals.
When you
And-
say 8%, just for clarification, are you
Yeah.
saying 8% of the value or
No,
8% of the
no, there were
total number of
14
sales?
lake
Got it.
homes, so only 14 homes out of 160. So it's a very small percentage of homes that were used to make a decision. And the people that were affected, the 500, and I don't know this number exactly. I heard somebody earlier say that there were about 500 homes represented by the lake regions. The decision to increase their taxes higher to, or their assessment value higher to and above and beyond, is based on 2% of the sales data. And in my industry, what we call that is a statistical anomaly. Typically, you throw out a lot of the high values, and when you try to make a decision based on statistics, you look at the end value, and there really was not a lot of sales to choose to raise all these people's taxes higher than, to raise their assessment value higher than the assessment value of non-lake residents. So I think that's what we're all feeling, is that we're being targeted based on a low amount of actual data. Now, it's no secret to anybody that we're in a pandemic time period in 2021. There was a huge influx of people moving from Boston, city areas. This place was desirable, and the thing that I've been struggling with is the sales did go up, and it went up, and it was an anomaly. But the trouble is, next year, when there is zero sales of lake homes, because nobody is going to pay the values with these high taxes, the assessor's not going to decrease the amount of money that they've now levied upon us. So they're increasing our assessments on an anomaly, but they're not going to then decrease it when there aren't, a lot of sales. And I just find that extremely troubling. And I don't know. I didn't have a prepared speech. I kind of made all that up while I was sitting here, but it's just, working in the IT industry, I understand the assessor using calculations, but there's also this thing which is called heart and, compassion. And what's happening here, especially, no offense, to what was said in that November 8th meeting, that we're not even using the 2% increase that we had last year, so now we're increasing another 2% this year, which we don't even really have earmarked for anything, but we're slamming all these people with higher taxes during an anomaly, during a COVID period. So the trouble I'm having is a statistical person. Those calculations are probably all very accurate, and they're based on a very low end value of sales. That's the problem, because when you guys go back, you're going to look at the calculations and you're going to say, oh, those calculations were right. But there was hardly any sales. And the entire volume of lake people, their values are based on, there was a guy in my neighborhood, I can throw a rock at him. That house was purchased, and the guy chose to purchase every single couch, every chair, every painting on the wall, and all that money that he threw at this person is inside that sales number that the assessor doesn't even know about. That's an anomaly. Those sorts of things need to be thrown out when you do these calculations. Maybe he did, I don't know, but the 2% that they're calculating this increase on, specifically on these people, is just completely outrageous.
Joel, I appreciate your comments. I will offer two things, one thing based on something you said. So as noted earlier in the meeting, fiscal year 2023, which is the year we're in right now, that ends on June the 30th, that the tax valuations, were based on sales in 2021. So prior to tonight's meeting, and in 2021, what we saw was an increase in values from 2020 to 2021 on average of about 23.3%. Just to throw this out there, the difference between 2021 to 2022 in Lunenburg is another 25%. So, I think that I'll get to my comments later, but there's going to be 2 years in a row in which we're going to see these values raised at this kind of rate. I'm not saying at the rate that everyone has experienced. Hold on, let me correct that. Let me correct what I just said. Not at the rate that you have experienced, but what I'm saying is that when you look at values, actual values, the actual values that are being reflected in these were a 23.3% increase, and that the year that we just ended also saw another 25% increase. So I think that what you're speaking to is this is not something. Clearly, we're on a trend here that is an anomaly. And so it seems that you're speaking to a solution that is not just going to resolve this, but to make sure that next year, when the Board of Assessors are trying to figure out how to apply that 25% overall value, to make sure it's also not replicating the same issue that happened this year.
Why isn't it spread evenly?
I just want to remind everyone, we want to address speakers at the podium. Thank you, Joel, for your comments. I want to provide an opportunity for Ms. Guerin to come forward and make a statement. Thank you.
Dawn Guerin, 9 Crescent Terrace, which is on Little Hickory. I had no intentions on speaking tonight. The only time I've ever spoken in public forum has been at a school committee meeting, trying to ask permission to take my students from LHS someplace special and fun for them. I've been an educator for 29 years at Lunenburg High School, and a very proud one, very dedicated one. I love my students. I have students' parents all around here that are truly a part of my heart. 8 years ago, I lived a mile down the street from Little Hickory in the big family home, and was sitting at Hickory Hills Lake one night after a hot, sweaty soccer game and decided, I think I want to move to this lake. I love this community. I've been teaching for at that point it was 20-something years in this community. And I said, I really want to move here. So I did, and in a month and a half, boom, 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 life just happened, and I got rid of my big old family house and downsized to what I'm calling my forever little lake house. I've luckily landed in the most amazing neighborhood where if I sneeze, my neighbors say, God bless me, because they're that close. I came from 5 acres of land, and now I have a quarter acre of land. So 29 years deep at Lunenburg High School. I'm also a college educator part-time, trying to make ends meet. I have voluntarily coached multiple sports at the high school. I'm the student council advisor and put in ridiculous number of hours above and beyond even normal class time, like the tree lighting ceremony that we just had in this beautiful little town. My student council kids were there with their baked goods and their hot chocolate, and I don't think I went home until at least 9 o'clock that night from my school day. I've been involved also in my union. I just left a union meeting this afternoon, went to the basketball game for a hot second, ran home, grabbed a sandwich, literally ate it in the car to come down here. So no intentions of speaking, but I'm begging for some help. I don't know how many people know this, but last year, after COVID years, so I was in the negotiating team for 2 different rounds of negotiations for the last union, teachers union stuff, and we always hear there's no money, there's no money, there's no money. We were in the middle of negotiations, COVID hit, they shut us down. We got nothing. We walk away, they reopened for 1 year. Brace yourselves. Half of us, out of the 140 plus teachers, half of us got a 0.5% raise halfway through the year after what we did after COVID, or through COVID, and what we're still continuing to deal with. A 0.5% raise for half of us dedicated educators that made it through the hell of COVID, and we got a 0.5% raise. And next year, when I have to get a part-time job, I don't know if I'll be able to help coach this team or help coach that team or do this stuff. I'm going to need a part-time job if my taxes double. I'm single, I'm by myself. Hopefully that 26-year-old's leaving soon. So I don't have any supplemental income, except for get another job on top of my 2 other jobs. So I'm begging for some help, consideration, to reassess, to think about us all, either equally or individually, I don't know. But I'm really excited about negotiations for next year. Because if these taxes are going up, man, I'm hoping I'm going to get more than less than cost of living raise. So a 2% raise with the cost of living going up to whatever, that's something I've been living with for years, and many of my colleagues have. I am not on the verge of retirement. I'm still very happy at that high school, and I don't want to get cranky. And if I have to work another job, it's going to make me extra cranky because I don't have time to correct and plan for everything I do now. So please help us. Thank you.
If I can just take a quick poll of how many more people tonight are looking to speak, just so we have an idea for time. Okay, thank you.
I'm going to be really quick.
No, you have 3 minutes and as much as you can.
I think that
best you
the
can.
calculations, like everybody said, needs to be looked at.
If you wouldn't mind just stating your name and address.
Oh, I'm sorry. Linda Vickery at 169 Peninsula Drive.
Thank you.
So I looked at my fourth quarter bill from last time, and my building value and my land value were just about even. But then when I got my bill yesterday, my building value went down, and my land value is like through the roof. So how can if everything is based on selling of homes, why did my building go down? So I just don't get it. It went down by 15%. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening, Mr. Chair and Board. I want to thank you for having us here tonight. Before I start, I just want to thank everybody who came out and helped. Together, we can fix this. But it's just starting, guys. Next week is going to be a big meeting, and I hope, Town Manager, you announce it where it's going to be. Hopefully, it's not going to be here, because you'll have more people next week. But again, I want to thank you. And a quick summary is, where's the common sense? I mean, I'm just going like, really? I mean, I know, Mr. Alonso, you and I talked about the formulas, but where's the heart? Where's the compassion? Where's the common sense? For 2 years during COVID, I worked these streets every day with the Salvation Army to give back to this community. And now you're throwing everybody out, and that's what's happening. So I'm asking you as a board to join us, assist us. Don't let these people leave. This may be the last time you see some of these faces here, and that's breaking my heart. And I'm going to do anything we can to make sure we try to change this. So if you can make that announcement, that would be appreciated. Again, thank you guys for showing up.
Hi, Carol Hatch, 41 Hilltop Lane.
Good to
Hi,
see you,
guys,
Carol.
and girls, women. Not sure to where to begin, but I think I'll begin at the beginning. I was 15 years old, ice skating with my father when I found my house. I found the house. My dad used to like to say he did, but I did, on Hickory Hills Lake. We couldn't afford it. We waited a year and were finally able to buy it. It was a summer home, and only a summer home. My parents put a lot of time and money into that house. Fast forward a few decades, in 2006, I bought the house from my parents. They did not help me. I bought it. I have 2 siblings. I had to buy it outright. I bought it as a single mom. And my kids and I mean, we never suffered, but we certainly forfeited a lot to stay where we are. My heart and soul resides where I live, not just me physically. I can't imagine having to leave my home. It has been in my family for over 50 years. And like many other people have said, I'm not rich. I too was a teacher. There's a lot I don't do in order to live where I live. I did last year, I did go to Greece, but other than that, I don't go on fancy vacations. I stay at home. And, you know, I think it was Dave that just said, we got to get to the heart of the matter. And the heart of the matter is many of us, and even if we haven't lived there a long time, but many of us have lived there on our lakefront properties for a long time. Other people have scrimped in order to buy their properties to retire in. My husband and I paid off our mortgage, saved up to pay off our mortgage in the hopes that we wouldn't have a lot of surprises in our future. I am now retired. He is now retired. They're not sleeping at night. I mean, I'm sleeping, but I don't know when I have to fish and cut bait. And furthermore, if anything, my property value has decreased. First, there's erosion. Second, there's invasive weeds, a big increase in toxic algae blooms, increase in E. coli, which has decreased our ability to use it recreationally. And I and many people in this room have put a lot of time, blood, sweat, and tears into keeping the lake viable. Thank you.
Thank you.
Eric Pettis, 43 Hemlock Terrace. Good evening.
Good evening.
It's back around 2007. I'll start at the beginning as well. We didn't have much money, didn't know how we were going to retire, had 4 kids. My wife didn't really work her whole career because she stayed home to raise our children as a choice. And we were wondering how we were going to retire one day. How am I going to not work? How am I going to be able to live? So we came up with a strategy, and we called it Shack on a Lake. And we put a vision board up in our kitchen with a picture of a shack on a lake. And my son wanted to be a welder. We put that up there. My daughter wanted to go to art school. We put that up there. Long story short, I was working for a company that was an ESOP, and it got into financial difficulty, and it ended up selling. And the universe gave me enough money to be able to buy a property that the daughter of the owner was going to buy, but 2 weeks after I got paid, they put the house on the market. I'll never forget looking at it, walking down onto the dock and looking up at the majestic pine trees and the beauty of this dinky little 1,400 square foot home that had the original furniture in it from 1950 and had never been updated. And I said, this is it. This is it. And now this. Everything everybody said. Everything. I mean, okay, my taxes went from $1,800 to $3,900. I get it. It's not $3,900 every quarter, but that's a big shock. My shack in the lake is looking shaky, okay? And I've worked in business, in manufacturing, medical devices, positions of responsibility, where surprises like this, if they happened, someone's going to lose their job. You don't have surprises like this in financial accounting in a business where there's no accrual, and at the end of the year, they're counting on a certain revenue and net profit for the shareholders, and all of a sudden it's $1,800 to $3,900 times all these people and the people that can't be here. Now, I don't believe that you're incompetent, and I don't believe that you're asleep at the wheel, but someone made a big mistake, and they need to be held accountable, and you've got a wonderful opportunity to do something about it. And if you do, I'll vote you in. And if you don't, I'll vote you out. And there's also class action lawsuits. I'm not trying to threaten you, but you've got an opportunity here to do something right for the community. But the biggest impact about this whole thing, it's not my money. It's not whether you get voted in or whatever. It's the humanity of the whole thing. The humanity. How could anybody do this to the people on fixed incomes? People, everybody, what they said. And there's so many more stories that could be given right now. So I pray that you step up to the plate and you do the right thing. Thank you very much.
How you doing? I'm Michael Barnowski, 85 Island Road. I go by Chip, but anyways. Excuse the ignorance on how this thing whole works because I don't really know, but are you guys allowed to answer questions? Can I ask you questions personally?
Minimally, but yes.
Have you ever seen a raise of 100% on real estate taxes, property, assessments?
Not that I'm aware of. I'm not sure if
Yeah.
you're here at the beginning, so I will offer the comment that while we are trying our best tonight to provide this forum, and we will make some comments afterwards.
Ultimately, what I'm getting at,
But I just want to offer you this,
Yeah.
if you weren't here at the beginning, that the Board of Assessors is the board that has the authority to make these assessments. So they're the ones who do that. We certainly will be forwarding their information and working with them. Again, we're going to make our comments afterwards.
So-
I just want to give you that information.
Mr.
Has
Chair,
anybody seen
if I
it
could-
go?
If I may just answer his question, as the longest serving member on this board,
Yes.
16, 17 years, my answer to you is no, not in this broad an area. I've seen individual houses or several homes
Yeah.
because of tax law changes that individual properties have gone up, but nothing of this nature, no.
So we could almost say that this might be a mistake. I mean, so now everybody here is expected to pay for somebody's mistake. So we file the abatement, all well and good. We don't get that money for a year. We're still supposed to be paying. There's all this $5,000. Extra $5,000 to some people, that's a lot of money for an entire year. Where have to do it? The assessor's office, whatever, they're not paying it. They're not out any money. We're out of money. Why are we doing this? Why do we have to pay? You know, on their mistake, you're expecting us to pay and then wait a year for what? To get it $200 back? Our prices aren't going to go down next year. You're not going to adjust the difference. Now we're stuck paying the exact same prices on somebody else's mistake. Think about that one. You guys are the board, right? So you guys can do something about that. You can't say, hey, everybody pay $1,000 each term until we get this figured out. Something went wrong, and we're all stuck paying for it. We're all stuck doing this. Thank you.
Hi, Derek Fairchild, 21 Birch Island Way. I'm on Hickory Hills. And just a snapshot of a couple things people have said. One is the town doesn't necessarily need the money. We have a surplus, so there's no huge need of that. There's ballpark 500 homes we're talking about. Ballpark, our taxes have gone up $6 grand a year. That's $3 million. And with no warning, none. I could understand it more if housing's going up, and so we're projecting these increases over this time, but you're seeing the calamity that this is going to have to about 10% of the homes in Lunenburg. And 8% inflation, that's very newsworthy. When the electric companies are talking about a 30% increase in rates, that's very newsworthy. With inflation going up at the supermarket, that's very newsworthy. And the biggest number I gave was 35%. We're talking 100. That's very, very newsworthy. So I think this is a mistake. They should be able to be easily changed with a keystroke or something like that. The abatement process, as we talked, is going to be, I would say, 500 homes, or even if half of them went through, that's going to be a lot of workload for the assessor's office and a lot of pain for us. So this should be all this extra $3 million from something that the town, because you guys have done a really good job on the budget. You have a surplus. Kudos. It's not needed, and it's going to inflict a lot of pain. And you can see with a lot of people here, with notice from getting it in the mail today, all these people are here from Three Lakes. There's 500 houses of us, and we're very much lake people. I mean, we talk a lot. We have a community. There's this much action in this short a period of time. We're gonna be definitely speaking up as more time goes by. But with February 1st as the assessment deadline and all the pain that we've talked about that's going to inflict, that is not the solution here. The solution is much faster. I think it was a keystroke of 135. It could be a keystroke of something different. Thank you.
Do we have anyone, I just want to, well, I want to see as well, do we have anyone online with their hands up?
Richard Letarte, 260 Lancaster Avenue, and I'll wait for the booze. I'm also on the Board of Assessors. I appreciate all your comments. I appreciate you having come here. You make a lot of good points, a lot of interesting points, but I just want to reiterate that the Department of Revenue sets the standards. We have to abide by their standards, and yes, it goes to the Board of Selectmen. Maybe we've made a few mistakes here and there. That's what the abatement...
Please do not speak out. Only the person at
That's
the
what the
podium
abatement process is all about. So I invite you to file the abatements. We'll do what we can. We'll work with the Board of Assessors. We'll work with the Board of Selectmen and go from there. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Lieutenant. That is not keeping with the decorum of this building and of what we're doing here this evening. Please.
Bill Hudson, 90 Hemlock Drive. I'm also going to talk a little bit about my mother's property, which is on Pine Acres Road, Hickory Hills. Overall, my land value went up 135%. My mother's went up 135%. My overall assessment went up 62%, and my taxes went up 18%. An interesting thing that I found today is last year, my land value for 24,394 square feet was priced at $3.74. Then it was times, it says size adjustment, 2.55 to come up to a value of $232,645. This year, I'm at $4.48 for $109,000, 285 cents, times 5. So now my value is $546,000. My mother's property has 11,500 square feet. Her rate is $8.32, times 5, to get to 135%. Why is the value per unit different from one house to another when someone has acreage and is only paying $145,000, $88,000 for large pieces of property? Why are we being taxed over and above these percentages? Why are we taxed 5 times more than the land is there? At $230,000, I paid $285,000 for my property with a house on it. I tore it down. The land was valued at $283,000. Now it's more than my house. Just saying, something's wrong there. Other people with large pieces of property should be paying a little bit better. There should be some more equity going on here. Why did it change from 2.55 to 5? Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Rabbit.
Thank you very much. John Rabbit, 314 Townsend Harbor Road. My hearing aid just fell out when I pulled off this stupid mask. Anyway, with regard to having only 12 to 14 pieces of property generating your analysis is fundamentally flawed. As a statistician, we never consider anything less than 33 to be remotely remotely reliable. So I would suggest that while the assessors are separate and you really have no jurisdiction, I think you might have the ability to initiate an investigation into the methodology they were used by some people who can tell you how statistically valid this analysis really is. And I think from what I'm hearing so far, it's extraordinarily flawed. If you look at this, you used a mean analysis. What's your standard deviation? It's enormous. It's absolutely enormous. So I think that this board could initiate that investigation as an independent group looking into the methodologies that were used. And that's what would be my suggestion to this. Thank you very much. Good night.
Do you have anyone else that is looking to speak that hasn't already had the opportunity yet this evening to speak? in the back of the room. We'll come back to you, Mr. Fortune. We have a gentleman coming from the back of the room. Yep.
Nathan Kaddish, 605 Reservoir Road, Lunenburg. I'm a Navy veteran. Since I was a year tall, I wanted to live on the water. That dream came to my family 6 years ago. What are the standard operating procedures for the Board of Assessors office? Where are they published? What rules do they have for all of the different ways they play with our money and provide it to the town and do good for our town? I'm not saying there's anything funny there, but this certainly brings to question. The other thing that I was doing a little bit of research and trying to remain as biased as possible, and almost every community in Massachusetts with the large amount of water that crashes into our state every high tide and every low tide, there's a lot of laws around water. And one of them is that there's an accepted definition of what waterfront property means to each community. Now, if I have a brook that's non-navigable that runs through my property and my waterfront, well, you are in better part of half of the state. If I have a pond and I have a farm, is a percentage of my property deemed to be waterfront? In a good part of this state, that is the case. So I just like the definitions of what make waterfront, what make navigable, what make non-navigable water, who belongs receiving this tax increase if we're all going to face it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Alex Yower, 226 Sunset Lane. I'm not going to rehash the November 8th meeting. That's been established already, but I'm curious of what the discussion may have been had Mr. Carroll not deceived all of you by stating the fact that it was indeed significant, because what I'm seeing here is that there was an across-the-board 135% increase in land values, not counting whatever the house value was. So, and I'm hearing that we should all file abatements, even if 250 people out of the 500 lake people file an abatement, and after 3 months, if it hasn't been processed, it's denied. What's the likelihood that, say, 250 abatements will get processed in 3 months period? I don't know what the time frame is on that, but I have a feeling that somebody's going to lose out at the end, even if they do file an abatement, just because they won't have time to get it processed. And while that's happening, my Q3 and 4 payments are going to be, I'm seeing an 81% increase in what I paid for Q1 and 2. So I'm seeing $1,600 per quarter. Mr. Jeffries, at the 1-3 meeting, you had to make up a $900 deficit last year of your taxes, and that didn't seem to be insignificant to you. I'm paying $1,600 for 2 quarters, and then preparing for my 24 taxes, which have gone up 40% in total. So while all this is going on, I'm also a retired person like many of these other people. I bought my house in 2018, have since retired, and this was going to be my end-of-life home also, but I don't know if that's going to come to fruition or not. So I just want to throw those things out there.
Thank you.
I'm not going to go into, I'm Debbie Lincoln, 46 Hemlock Drive, Hickory Hills. I'm not going to go into numbers. Our numbers are just as atrocious as everybody else's. I just want to say we've been on Hickory Hills for 40 years. When we moved there, it was shacks. There was nothing there that was a McMansion. I know people that have lived there as long as we have put their hearts and souls into building nice homes. And we have put our hearts and souls into making the lake a beautiful community that it is. And I just want to say one thing to everybody on the Assessors Board and everybody who I'm standing in front of. You cannot put a price tag on goodwill and good community and trust. And you just did. Thank you.
Before we call and repeat, anyone else that has not had the opportunity to speak tonight that would like to take the opportunity to speak? All right, anyone who's spoken already, but, oh, yes, in the back. And then after you, Paula. And if anyone online would like to also speak, just please raise your hand.
Hi, my name is Gina Leone, and I live at 52 Pearl Street. I wanted to make 2 points, and I want to try to not forget them, but I might have an unpopular opinion here tonight. I didn't grow up on the lake. I'm not from here. I never dreamed of living on a lake. I'm not saying I don't care. I very much appreciate it, but my fiance grew up here, and it was his dream. And he saved every penny. He grew up on this lake. His parents grew up on this lake. Sorry, not Hickory, on Lake Shirley. He went through a horrible breakup and had to like save up a bunch of money and buy it out. Like he has put 120% into that house. I'm marrying him. I don't care. But now what you did makes me not want to be here. I'm going to go home and have fights with him that I don't want to be a part of this community. I don't want to be a part of this lake. Why should we be paying that? On top of which, where is that money going? If we are going to pay this increase, right? It's a public lake. Are you actually going to put a police boat on the lake every weekend? Are you going to take care of us? Are you going to clean it? Are you going to make the boats that come in from other places actually get washed? Is there going to be an inspector? Like, what are you going to do that's actually going to help us? That makes me want to stay. Because otherwise, every time we pay our taxes, it's going to be a huge fight between him and I really don't want to sign up for that. It's his dream. So he's not here because he's on a business trip, and I'm not going to speak for him, but I will support him 110% in what he wants, and this is just gross. I don't want to be a part of it, and I'm like the next generation. I haven't been here. I didn't grow up here. Like I said, I don't have kids in the school system yet. Why should I? Why don't I go to Acton Boxborough? Don't have to pay taxes like that there. Just no surprises. I'm just saying this was a shock. And I can't speak, I didn't bring any numbers. I didn't bring our bills because I was just supporting my mother-in-law and driving her here. But after listening to everybody else, they came so prepared and they did all this research. And maybe it's a personal opinion. And maybe you are taking notes on your cell phones, but like, if you make all the kids put their cell phones down in schools, yeah, but you had a grumpy cat face and you were taking notes. So maybe if you're gonna be up there, and we all have to, not scream things out, just be mindful of what it looks like. Like, we're all here because we're passionate and we care about the community, and I applaud all of the teachers and the people that have put in so much effort, and I've seen people out there on the lake, and we're out there pulling all the algae, and I'm really happy to see you all here. But as someone that's 35, maybe I have a different opinion, but it's shameful. Like, why would I want to be here? Shouldn't you want to, be proud of your town? So, sorry, and sorry for not loving the lake. But, I've learned to love it. I just, I didn't grow up ice skating here or whatever. Just, I don't know, you want to have that small town feel and take care of it and take care of your neighbors and build that community? You're not building it. You're destroying it.
Sorry, Paul, I'll make sure I call you next.
Sorry. I'm Imre Toth, and my family has owned 68 and 56 Pine Acres Road since 1957. My daughters are in the back there. So the bad news is that our tax went up 137%. The good news is that we're not millionaires. And if anybody would like to buy our property for $1.2 million, come talk to me. Thank you.
We do have someone online. We're going to call Jay Sinja Morgan.
Hi, I'm Jane Morgan, and just to I guess commiserate with the gentleman, or to agree with the gentleman who had a property that bedroom one. It's and not only that, but it's a summer home, so we can't live in it year round. I'm sharing it with family members, and probably one of the original homes on the lake that we're trying to restore and keep it. My grandfather built it, and yeah, this is shocking news, but thank you.
Thank you.
Hi,
My dad was just up here a minute ago, 68 and 56 Pine Acres Road. My grandparents built their house, as he said, back in 1957. We've been trying to hold on to the property in our family, and currently my cousin is living in the property. We just got the property tax bill and we're completely astounded, shocked, thought it was a typo, because our normal quarterly bill is around $3,100. The bill we got is now $7,200. We don't have that money. Like, we don't have it. So how are we going to come up with that money in 3 weeks? If there's an abatement takes almost a year to get $200, it's like lunch money right now, you know? Like, that's not going to help. How are we going to pay our bills? I mean, I think everybody is asking this question right now. 135%? I mean, how would you guys feel if that happened to you? It's a joke. It's really disgusting. And I've spent my whole life on this lake. My family has grown up on this lake. My grandparents built their house there. It was their dream. And I honestly don't understand how, like everybody else, how this is happening and how anyone can let it happen. It's ridiculous. Like, I get property taxes go up every year. We all do. You know, 135%? What? What? How are we going to get the money in 3 weeks to pay our bills? And if we don't, what's going to happen? You're going to force us all into foreclosure? Is the town going to come after us? How do we work this out? Like, none of us know how to pay our bills now. And as somebody else also said, inflation, everything has gone up, everything. And now you want me to pull $4,000 where in 3 weeks? Where? Where am I going to get it from? And so when we can't pay our bill in 3 weeks, what happens? Can anyone tell me what happens?
The select board will respond after all the comments are done tonight.
Okay.
Thank you. All right. Yes. And then Paula, no matter what.
Good evening. My name's David Hart. I live at 253 Fire Road 16. I lived there my whole life. It's a summer residence for us. I can only live there 6 months out of the year. It's a mile in off of Catacoogamog Road. Myself and my neighbors plow and maintain it. I have no water in the wintertime. I have no heat in the wintertime. It's a 3-season cabin. My assessed value is almost $600,000. I own 0.27 of an acre. And there was 16 acres sold behind me for under $300,000. My assessment for my 0.27 is over $300,000, almost $385,000. And I can only live there 6 months out of the year. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, Paula, and then the gentleman in the back.
Paula Bertram, 312 Townsend Harbor Road. As everyone has said, this is an unheard of increase for these people to manage, including myself. What I'm urging you to do as the executive body of this town is to take aggressive action. Call an emergency meeting of the Finance Committee. Do line item transfers to increase that amount of $116,000 in the abatements. Do whatever you need to do from a financial standpoint to make this right. I'm also asking you, as we go into the budget cycle for next year and we go to town meeting, that a serious amount of the free cash is reallocated to fix this mistake.
Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Martin Thomas. I'm the property owner at number 30 Peninsula Drive at Hickory Hills.
And I have more of a question than a comment. Over the course of the evening, it's been said that the assessor and the Board of Assessors have to function subject to regulations promulgated by the Department of Revenue from the Commonwealth. Do those regulations require a distinction between lakefront and non-lakefront property, or was that distinction something the town of Lunenburg took upon themselves to do?
Mr. Chair.
I believe, were you on the?
Mr. Letard, if you will please come to the microphones, that way those at home have the opportunity to hear you.
Richard Letard, 260 Lancaster Avenue. That's an excellent question, and I'm going to give you an I think. I don't think that there's a distinction. However, the Department of Revenue requires, and this is an I think, requires every property to be upgraded from a quarter acre or whatever it is to 80,000 square feet. In other words, almost everything, no matter what it is valued. The land is assessed at essentially an acre and a half, almost 2 acres. That's, again, I'm telling you, it's an I think, and then this is a fairly recent thing.
Mr. Chair, Mr. Chair.
Yes.
I would say that as we said earlier in the meeting, the beginning of the meeting, the town manager said that the principal assessor will be here next week, and that is a technical question that needs to be answered. I understand. And instead of speculating, I would probably request that we get the actual answer because wrong answers seem to propagate a lot faster than right answers, and I'd rather get the right answer instead of having people speculate. So I don't know the answer to that question. I believe by your saying I think, you don't
I don't either, because I said I think.
Right. That's what I want to say. So before we even speculate, I'd rather that we get the answer when we meet with the principal assessor next week.
And do you have a follow-up question, sir?
A bit of a follow-up.
If you wouldn't mind just coming to the microphone for that.
Earlier, a gentleman said that there was 160 total sales, only 14 for lakefront. I agree with him that that's not statistically significant. Why make the distinction between lakefront and non-lakefront?
It's based on fair market value, and that's got from the guideline from the Department of Revenue. What were they selling for?
Right, I agree.
Yeah.
It should be fair market value, but why not do it? Why make the distinction between lakefront and non-lakefront?
Because the fair market value of a small property on the lakefront is going to be higher than somebody who owns a couple acres.
Well, you could extend that argument to a nice street.
I think, Mr. Letard,
split the hair indefinitely.
Mr. Letard, I think it would be beneficial for us to engage in that answer next week when we have you and CJ.
Thank you, Mr. Jeffries.
Thank you. Carol.
Carol Hatch, 41 Hilltop Lane. I just have one more comment. One of the houses on Hickory Hills Lake that sold for over $1 million now is a business. It's an Airbnb. So they could buy it at that rate.
That's not allowed, by the way.
Well, it's happening, and we've actually appealed, and we haven't got any satisfactory answers, but that is why they bought it at that rate, because they were expecting to make their money back. Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah. Mr. McDonald, I'm not going to recognize you yet, Mr. McDonald. I want to give the opportunity
Excuse me?
Just give me a moment.
Okay.
I want to see if there's anyone else here who would like to have the opportunity to speak. This is our last call. So anyone else that wants the opportunity to speak, please come forward. If you also have a question, it is also appropriate for you to come forward, ask that question. We are taking notes, so that way that question can be answered. If not tonight, then at a later point.
Thank you. And thank you for having the meeting. I'm Deborah Yower from 226 Sunset Lane, Lake Shirley. And I agree with everything that's been said, so I won't regurgitate that. But I have a question that on the information that I saw, there was a notation that next year there will be a formal assessment by the state. And so my question is, if none of this is corrected, are they going to come in with the baseline understanding that this is where we start and then move all over up or not? And that's really a process question. I don't understand how a formal assessment will be done as we look at what has happened this year. Do any of you know, or does anyone know?
No, and I think that is also a question for the principal assessor.
Perfect. Thank you so much. I appreciate the time.
Thank you.
Hello.
Hello.
My name is Carl Derner. I live at 291 Sunset Lane on Lake Shirley. Thank you for inviting the questions. I do have some questions. Don't expect any answers right now, but I think it does underscore the magnitude of this situation. Why haven't the last 2 years of qualifying sales and resulting assessment values been posted? The last year of assessment values posted is FY 2021. The last year of qualifying sales posted is calendar year 2019. When was the current assessment done? Why weren't the results communicated sooner? Is it reasonable to impose such significant additional costs with just a couple weeks' notice? What were the criteria applied to set the increase to waterfront and land values at 135%? What is the average increase to non-waterfront land values? Is there a precedent for biased assessment of waterfront land values in neighboring towns within the Commonwealth? Are we to expect further increases to building values as well? And finally, what are the plans for senior tax relief mentioned in recent Board of Assessors meeting minutes? Thank you very much.
Dave McDonald, Island Road. I just have a comment. One, I want to thank you for coming, Mr. Latat, for trying to explain. But we do have, but we do have, and again, it's something to think about, but there are properties on Hickory Hills, and I'm giving that for an example, where all the lakefront people's taxes increased. But across the street from me, their taxes went down. So that's kind of blows a little theory in there. The other thing I have to say is if you look at the town as a whole, taxes went up, buildings went up everywhere. The increase was town-wide. Now, if we had a luxury tax or a view tax, I can understand that. But right now, we're on the line of discrimination by just going with the lakes. And that's what attorneys are telling me, and we'll find that more out. But I suggest you talk to your board and find out how did it come up with this? I think that's what half the people want to know. How did you come up with this? Because I have no clue. So that's something I wish you'd go back to your board this week and talk to them. And I would ask CJ to come back now. I mean, this is a crisis in my concern. So I'm just letting you know, but thank you for coming and paying attention to us. I appreciate that.
Sir?
John Tata, 135 Flynn, the private road. One, I want to say to my lifelong friend, Mr. Letarte, the body here should know that Richard Letarte served on the Pacific Fleet during the Vietnam War. This is nothing for him, okay? I'll get payback, don't worry about it. And I have a question, because I was told by an attorney today that those of us who've survived past the age of 65 are not required to pay our real estate tax. It can be accrued at a rate of 16% per annum. And we'll let our kids and grandkids fight over it. Thank you.
Kathy Aller, 15 Crescent Terrace, over in Little Hickory. I just wanted to add to that list, if you could. I understand that they were saying that it's the state who requires all this mathematics, but I wonder if there's something that we can appeal to the state with the statistic question that's come up, because if it's a statistic question and everything is numbers, maybe it's not even up to us. Maybe the state can overrule this and say, that's not a statistical number, and that they would then let us redo whatever the revenue is, and then it would be taken out of your hands and out of the assessor's hands and put back to the state's hands by the fact that their numbers don't add up correctly. So just a thing, if we could look at that and up, that would be great.
All right. Thank you. Yes.
I'm Sandra Perko. I live at 64 Spring Street Extension on Lake Shirley. And that property's been in my family my entire life, 75 years. And it was a camp, and now it's a little home. When I built the home, it was on a non-conforming lot, meaning it's under an acre. It's 1/3 of an acre. I was restricted to 1 bedroom on the entire property. I was not allowed to put in a septic system. I have a tight tank. I take care of everything. I have a well. I'm just wondering, in this whole assessment thing, if you're under 2 acres in Lunenburg, you're not given the freedom to build anything beyond what the Conservation Commission allows. So is there an allowance for that in all this crazy assessment that's going on? And that's just a question and a concern of mine. Thanks.
Thank you.
Hi, Betty McDonald, 155 Island Road. I just have a quick question for the board. If we're coming back here next week, what steps are you going to take to financially prepare? Are you going to look at the budget? Are you going to come back with some kind of suggestions? Like, that's my question. What work are you going to do to make sure that we're not just standing here, once again, voicing complaints and not getting questions? Because we do have questions about the budget and where this money is going and how you got to this point. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else that would like to speak? If not, this would be the last public comment of the evening. Anyone else? Mr. Fortune.
You say that every time I come up. I don't know what that is. You don't want to hear from me anymore.
I said it to Mr. McDonald, too.
This is an easy question. John Fortune, 50 Hemlock Drive. Thank you. Thank you for taking my question.
Yep.
I just have a simple one. The process that we're going to follow immediately, the people that are in this room and in the lake communities, is to follow the abatement process. My question is, and maybe it's Mr. Letarte, or maybe Mr. Franco, but somebody, how long does it take for any one abatement to go through the process? What is the length of time for one? Because there's going to be hundreds. And is it something that is reasonable that can get done in the 90 days, or is that just not possible to begin with? So that's what my question is. Thank
Okay.
you.
Thank you, Mr. Fortune. All right, and with that, we will... So I want to... No.
There's no hands up.
No. So with that, we will end public comments for the evening. I will ask those who took the opportunity to come here to also wait a little bit, give the board the opportunity to respond to the last 2 hours of comments that we've heard from the public. Starting with Selectwoman Soroka.
This is the most amazing turnout I've ever witnessed. I sat on the school committee. I sat on the school committee for 6 years. I've never seen anything like it. I would like to see this happen more often in town.
Probably not this.
Not for this reason. Just in general. I thank you for taking the time, but we haven't discussed this at all, so we really don't know where we're going from here. I just got my tax bill this morning, so I don't know what steps we're going to take next.
Yep. Yeah, no, just any comments the board wants to make. I know that we'll probably be a little heavy on this end of the table. Mr. Dwyer.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I want to thank everyone for coming out tonight. I haven't had the experience to have this many people in a room. I think the only thing close is when I was on the Conservation Commission, and we did something to piss people off, and we got a great turnout. So apparently, this is how we get turnout. I think the message that you've each delivered has been loud and clear. Listening to a few people, Mr. Swenson, Mr. Rabbit, I think being an engineer, I tend to take an analytical view. And the assessor and his note referred to the calculations that are required by the Department of Revenue. However, I think those who work in fields that deal with calculations realize that there's a thing called garbage in and garbage out. And I think that's a case that we have here, that while they applied the formulas, they didn't use their common sense to see if it made sense at the end of the day, and obviously it didn't make sense. I do know that this board will do everything in its power to look into this over the coming days and weeks, and work to find a solution to the best of our ability. Thank you.
Mr. Franco. Selectman Franco. And if I can ask the booth to pin Mr. Franco.
Yes, thank you. I just want to say, I just want to make a human comment. Not math, not rules, laws, analyses. And on a human level, just listening to this is an unmitigated disaster, and it really has been devastating listening to these stories tonight. I appreciate all of you coming and sharing this. I'm shaken by it, and on a policy level, I have more questions than answers presently, but we will drill down on these questions. And others have touched on this, including just now Mr. Dwyer, and Mr. Rabbit earlier and others. But one thing that, just from now turning to the mathematical aspect of this and the analytical aspect, I do find it troubling extrapolating from, what was it, 16 sales, I think, on lake sales, to apply a policy to so many properties on the lake. These are, many of them are unique. They don't necessarily all fit a formula. So, that may help on an individual level on the abatements. Where the money's coming from, if 250 people file abatements, I don't know, but these are, I can assure you, I know the other people on the select board, and speaking for myself, we will drill down on this and do what we can where we can.
Thank you, Mr. Franco. To Vice Chair Alonso.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So, only because people are commenting on capacity of the room, the only time I've seen this room this filled was during the 2008 ice storm, which was equally pleasant as this is to everybody. So, there's very few things that you could probably say that are unanimous in the room or in general, but the most important thing, the sense that I got, is there's nobody in this room that's coming today before this board or making an appeal to the Board of Assessors thinking that A, they shouldn't pay taxes, or B, they are surprised their taxes increased. Those are not the points that are being made. That is an important thing. Everybody knows here how the system works, and again, in my tenure here, everybody's willing to let the wizard behind the curtain go unchecked, as long as when you get your bill, if it goes up 5% one way or another, or 10%, nobody questions that, okay? But sometimes, as somebody who is also in IT and also involves a lot with programming and has a very analytic view, sometimes not knowing how the process works puts you at a real flat-footed position, because when things like this happen, someone who, like myself, who's been on the finance committee, I think I know the finances and the budget process and everything in this town pretty well. I don't know how the assessment process works. It really is something that's apart from me, and I don't know from the DOR what the process is. I know in general what the process is, but I don't really know, and that's going to be critical. So what the principal assessor says next week about how the process works is going to be important for me to make a final determination on how to remedy the problem. But what I can say tonight is that there is not one part of me that doesn't believe there's not a serious problem. It is clear that there is a serious problem here. And the problems are, multiple. First, I think that at that meeting, when I replayed the November 8th meeting, because I've been in the position before where certain parts of the town increased, I asked specifically the question that I asked. And when I reviewed that tape and I got the answer that I got, and then we have the results of this, the events that caused this meeting, clearly there's a disconnect there, whether it was intentional or otherwise. Having people get 2 more months of notification to plan action would have been very helpful to people. And plan is the important word. I got an email from somebody in this position. I don't know. I'm not going to disclose what their name is. I don't remember what their name is, but the point that they made is very important. They said when they bought their house here several years ago, they bought it at a certain level and they planned it to be their retirement home. And they did all the financial plannings knowing, as all of you do, that taxes would go up and they would plan accordingly. But their house got revalued from what it was, which is approximately $550,000 or $600,000 to $850,000. And they said in their email to me, I didn't buy an $850,000 home because I couldn't afford an $850,000 home. Now, in the end of all this, we have to come up with a solution to this. And the solution, even if somebody says to us, we followed the letter of the DOR requirements to the sentence, to the letter of everything and every rule, I would say in return that there's obviously some part of that process that the pandemic or some other circumstance has exposed as a serious flaw in the program, in the process. Because people have to be able to be buffered from 135% assessment increases and 50 to 60% tax bill increases. They just have to. People who bought the $1.2 million home that's running as an Airbnb, they're not going to be surprised at their taxes because they paid $1.2 million for the house last year. That's not the people that are being of concern here. It's everybody in here. And the one thing I'm most proud about of my service to this town is that in the 17 years or so that I've served, I've met so many of you I know. Some people are new faces. And all the stories, not only personally, but all the service stories to the town, a town is the people in it and the community. The woman who came here saying, I didn't grow up here, and she wants to know why I should stay here, I don't have an answer to her with this situation. We collectively have to come up with an answer for that. Because eventually, even if every rule was followed, there's something morally and ethically wrong with the result of the equations that got us here. So I will vow a few things. That first of all, to the finances of the overlay budget, we definitely have to take action and look at that with the finance committee, because as people get abatements, they shouldn't get partial abatements because we don't have the money in the overlay to assess that. We are going to have to do that, number one. Number two, and I don't even know if these are possible because I don't know what the principal assessor is going to say, but if it's within our power, I would certainly lobby hard and fight hard to get a review of the entire assessment process for this year so that we properly assess it. And if that means talking to our state legislative delegation and lobbying what the DOR rules are to get that done, then we'll do that. But something like the ice storm exposed weaknesses in the electrical grid and the responses that utility companies should have at those times, this has exposed, I think, a huge problem that people they shouldn't have to be facing at this point. There should be triggers and mechanisms and safety valves in place to stop these kinds of things. Even if they said, hey, this is going to happen, but we are going to buffer it over X amount of time so that it's not one spike in 1 year. So again, you have my full support in anything you need from this board, and I don't speak for the board, they all speak for themselves, but I will work hard to see whatever it is that is possible to do, and that's working with the principal assessor, working with the board of assessors, but I think an injustice has to be righted. Thank you.
So, first, I want to thank all of you for taking the time to come here this evening. As chair of the select board, I understood what my challenge tonight would be. Was understanding that this is a really emotional issue for for all of you. I don't think anyone came up here and spoke and was not emotive in your answers. And I think the challenge tonight for me was helping ensure that we provide a civil forum for you to know that we are here to listen and for us to actually listen. For those who've been watching our meetings and kind of how we operate, I really do think that we have a very good board here of residents who are committed to the betterment of our community, that we collaborate across, I think, the full spectrum in our community with many residents. I know that most of my week, I wouldn't say most, but last night I went to bed about 4 o'clock in the morning. Because I was working on this meeting today, knowing that I needed what my role would be. There are many nights, and I know my fellow selectmen will attest to this, especially Mr. Franco. I think he's probably been the victim of this more than most, that I do lose sleep over the job that we have in front of us, and I think that I take this exceptionally serious. What you're saying to us tonight is crystal clear. And it's I will say I swear a lot in real life, and it's hard for me not to swear tonight. But what you're saying is really crystal clear. Insert the expletive I want to say. I think I don't know what happened. Now, I'm in property. I do understand that values around the lakes have increased, and they have increased at a rate higher than the rest of the community. Now, is that increase 10% more? Is it 5% more? I don't know. But is it 135% more? I think we all can say no, right? Is it 300% more? I think we can say no. We have to, though, in process, the rules that we establish for ourselves, for how we govern ourselves, need to work when we are at peace as well as when we are pissed off. And so we are talking about, and I want to be clear on this, we are talking about another elected board that this board does not have oversight over. We do not have oversight over what the Board of Assessors does. Period. End of story on that. However, our role is to understand these challenges that happen in our community. We have the authority to investigate anything we desire, so long as it is a majority vote of this board. And we do have to give the Board of Assessors, as we have just become aware of this last week, and really today is when we are aware of the extent of this. I still haven't received my tax assessments in the mail. We have to work with the Board of Assessors to really dig into all the things that my colleagues have already said. I agree with everything that everyone on the stage has mentioned, especially the comments from Mr. Alonso, that we need to look into what happened here. Clearly something went awry. Clearly there's a disproportionate impact. And we need to have a better understanding of why this happened. We need to communicate why this happened. But we also understand that it is unaffordable. To the person who's looking for $4,000 in the next 2.5 weeks, we all can say that that's expletive unreasonable. That's just not reasonable, right? That most people can't just find $4,000, especially if you're working, you got kids in the house, you're a single person, or if you're a senior on a fixed income. If I had to pull $4,000, I know I'd have to go into a certain account that I don't normally use. That's my retirement account. I would probably have to pull that rather than touching my savings and long-term savings, because I wouldn't want, what's next quarter going to be? It's this era of discomfort that if today you don't know if this is a livable community for you to remain in, you certainly don't know if a year from now. And a certain part of this, which is what I hear, is that people feel almost penalized that you've made, I graduated from Lunenburg High School. I know that Hickory Hills was largely in the 90s a bunch of camps. It was largely a lot of people who had summer homes. And what happened over the last 20 years is a lot of people decided to stay here in town. And they've invested in those homes. And they've improved those homes. And we see the sense of community that happens on the lakes. We see all the events that occur on Lake Shirley, that occur on Lake Welham, and that occur on Hickory Hills. And the lake community is different than the community in the rest of in the rest of town, because you guys are already working on something, right, for the betterment of your neighbors. That's already your bond with one another. And so when something like this happens, you feel slapped in the face. You feel like you've really been penalized for building a sense of community and making a better relationship with your neighbors. So we are going to discuss how we can make sure that we are supporting this need for information. We know there's going to be a negative impact, but we also have to follow the lead of the Board of Assessors and understanding what they are going to put out, what they believe is reasonable. Because there's a question which I don't know the answer to, which is if all these assessments are wrong, if your assessments are wrong, if every single assessment on all these lakes are wrong, what that means is that everybody else's assessments are wrong too. And so we need to, because this is not our role, this is not our purview, I don't know the answers to this. But what you're hearing tonight is a commitment from us that we will look into this to the best of our ability, and that we will make sure that we try to right this wrong. We will make sure we provide the information that as we can provide it. I understand that today this isn't going to make your life any better. But what we will do is continue to work full steam ahead to make sure that we get you the information that you need and to see what processes are available at our disposal. And I will not hesitate if we need to call a town meeting before the town meeting in May to reallocate funds. We will do it if that's what we need to do. But I do not know. I do not know, nonetheless, what our actual options are. So what we need to do is we need to regroup. We need to have a discussion on what the next steps are. We need to have multiple conversations with our attorneys, with town manager. And what I would ask for you on your part is to have some trust that you've elected us to be here to do the job. You know as well as we know, we do not get paid. We do this because we actually care. We're putting in this time because we actually care. So we're going to do right by you. Give us some time and have a little trust. Next week we will have a meeting. We will have the principal assessor here. He will speak. He will provide a Q&A. We will allocate that time at this meeting because we understand the importance of this issue. And then we can work through solutions and what's possible. I understand that that this is high emotive. We will not be calling someone back from paternity leave. That will not happen. However, he will be back next week. And when he is, he will be here and we will talk to him. I don't know if this is, I know that a lot of questions we have tonight, calling for the investigation, what are we going to do to resolve this? Request to have a meeting on Martin Luther King Day, $120,000, $116,000 allocation, we understand is not going to resolve these issues. Things need to be looked into. We're going to look into them. Next week, we're going to have this meeting. I would ask that if you're able to attend remotely and feel so inclined, it might not be a bad thing. However, certainly, we will look to have the meeting, unless we hear other information at this point, we will look to have the meeting here. We will encourage your participation remotely or in person, and we will make sure we get your questions answered to the best of our ability. And we are going to make sure that we resolve and fully resolve the concerns that are clearly in front of us. I will advise two things, and I will ask you two things. We have staff. And staff come to work, and you have to believe that they really are trying to do the best that they can. It is not in any of our best interest to call Sheila because you're upset and yell at her. I know we've had a couple of phone calls that were really people are angry. We need to take our anger and turn it into solutions and actions here. And yelling at staff is not the way to get there. So we need to figure this out. We are going to figure this out. Please continue to have trust and confidence in us. I think we've done right by you thus far, and we will continue to do so. Next Tuesday.
Mr. Chair. Before everybody leaves,
Before everybody leaves,
I would ask you one important action. One of the things I wrote down is that
order.
I have to put on my family get-together voice soon. One of the things I noted here is that the most awful thing that could happen is if there are people who aren't on social media, don't watch this, and don't know what they should do. So please talk to all your neighbors and everybody to make sure they get the abatement form in. I would hate that somebody's going to be locked out of some process because they didn't file in time. We don't want that to happen. So anybody that you can talk to across the whole thing, across the lakes.
Do you think the town manager can put that on your social media? Get the word out?
Yes, certainly.
Yes.
And there are copies. I don't know. There weren't 200 copies, so there are copy abatement applications on the
They're
table.
online, yeah.
And they're online as
And
well.
they're also online. All right, we are going to pause while we know people are going to leave. Yep. Let's take about a minute here, you guys.
The town.
Thank you.
The assessors failed to acknowledge is that the lake properties are already elevated in price over the other properties.
Because I was going to say, we need to have this for us. Oh, well, thank you. Thank you. All of you.
Thank you.
It's a city fair. I don't know if all that numbers collection I did really amounted to what I said. But
No, I was hoping that you elaborated. No?
Dead end.
Well, I thought you would have said the variation, the inconsistency.
Last week I said,
accurate.
there's a lot of people who
Some of the things that I don't know inside of it, so I'll say something like I have in it. So
Okay. Possibly next week, though. Possibly next week, though.
Yeah, well, it's hard to know. Like the guy said, every block, no matter how big it is, will have an assessment. And that's not particularly figuring that this block has this blanket assessment as if it was 2 acres. So that doesn't enter into any calculation I did. So, yeah, I don't know.
Hello. I think we all need to go for a drink.
We're not adjourned. We're just waiting for people to leave. Yeah, if you want to be. Yeah, because you're here. Kathy Clark, I told her she's not going to come. She's going to. Lou Scalabrini.
All right. So we are going to pick back up on our regular agenda for the evening, which I think it's no secret that we are going to heavily abbreviate. All right, so we're going to, any announcements this evening?
No.
I don't know who's listening to announcements at 9:30. We're going there.
The two young folks who are here.
We're getting there.
One.
Yeah.
Well, two of them are here.
So-
one in support of the other.
So we're not going to do.
Mr. Franco was trying to raise his hand for something.
Yep. Mr. Franco?
This may sound extremely trivial at this point, but it's still an announcement. There's pancake breakfast tomorrow.
There's someone who does not shirk their responsibilities.
All right. So what we're going to do tonight is we're going to move on to our interviews, appointments, reappointments, and resignations regarding the 300th anniversary committee. And
Yeah,
say again?
everybody except.
Yeah, so tonight
Lincoln will be
we
coming
are
another
expecting the remaining members to be here next week, as I announced at about 8 o'clock time period. All right, so what we have tonight is we have the 300th anniversary committee.
Kathy's still listening. Can she do it?
She can interview remotely. So 300th anniversary committee interviews. We're going to start first tonight with Mrs. Deb Lincoln from 46 Hemlock Drive. If you wouldn't mind coming forward, I've already said your name and address, and just expressing your interest in this position.
Well, thank you. I've been involved in the town in a number of capacities. I've been in the Historical Society. I've been the roving news reporter when we had a Lunenburg news program. I've been a poll worker. I've been on PAC. But I'd like to talk about three things that I think uniquely qualify me for the committee. One is that I'm currently the chairman of the Council on Aging. And what I think we have a unique opportunity here with our senior citizens, because they can bring us back to what Lunenburg used to be. And we can interview them, we can videotape them, and they can go back generations and bring us what Lunenburg used to be like. And I think we have a wonderful opportunity here to involve our seniors. They are treasures, they are gems, and they can bring us history of Lunenburg before it's forgotten and lost. Number two, I am a proud Lunenburg High School graduate. 2028 will be my 60th reunion year, and we have thousands, and I know, I'm ancient. We have thousands and thousands of graduates, and I think this is a wonderful opportunity to bring them back into the fold, to get them involved in this event, and as an alumni association member, I will pledge to get them as involved as we can. And number three, this is a really unique qualification. I know a lot about Massachusetts, and we are 108 years past the first town that became part of Massachusetts. So we have a lot of history of other towns who have done a 300th anniversary. Actually, Plymouth, 400 years. So I can draw on a lot of things that other communities have done. There's actually a 1967 Lunenburg High School graduate who did a 300-year anniversary book for the town of Pembroke, and I have it. So I'm very proud of her. She was a friend of mine. In addition, I wasn't here for the 250th, but for the 275th, I stood on this very stage for first night and sang as part of an a cappella group for the entertainment. I was an actor in the pageant, and I helped coordinate the parade, the 2-hour parade. So those are my qualifications. And do you have any questions?
I have none.
No.
I'll paraphrase Linus from Charlie Brown Christmas, like, those are good qualifications.
Thank you.
All right. So any questions or comments? I'll go down the line.
I don't
None?
have any questions. I think she's
No.
qualified.
I don't have any questions. Mr. Franco.
Yes, hold on. I am on. Okay, so I just want to, number one, thank you, Mrs. Lincoln, for stepping forward and volunteering for this. I do think you would be a great addition to this. I want to also make a point, though, for the general public so that they understand and make a very important distinction. We have previously expressed, relative to other boards and commissions, an aversion, and as a matter of fact, in my mind, it's an absolute bar, except where it already existed, of having, say, spouses on the same commission or committee or board. However, I want this important distinction to be made. I don't think that needs to apply here. The 300th anniversary committee is a special purpose committee. It is not a permanent standing committee, board, or commission, and it will be dissolved once it has fulfilled its function. And therefore, I do not see that principle as a bar to this appointment.
Thank you,
and
Mr.
I will support it.
Thank you, Mr. Franco.
I want to thank Deb for coming forward. I mean, I know firsthand about all those qualifications from different venues, whether they're her Facebook posts about and her talks on the 351 communities in the Commonwealth, and I know obviously about her serving on Council on Aging. I don't know that you performed in the pageant because I wasn't at the pageant at the 275th. I was here in town, but somehow I missed the first night pageant because I was away at family, but that's okay. I want to thank you for all you do, and I am not at all surprised that you are coming forward to want to do this. I think you would be an excellent candidate among the ones we've already appointed to do a fabulous job in organizing and creating great events throughout that 300th year celebration. So I welcome you aboard. We'll welcome you aboard officially after the vote, but unofficially now.
Thank you.
Well, Mrs. Lincoln, you certainly know where I stand when it comes to you and your husband. And I did encourage this.
You did.
I did encourage this when we
You
were
did.
doing it because I, like Mr. Franco, also draw the distinction that, regulatory boards, meaning a board in which an applicant submits a request for that board, then has to review and approve, that then has an impact on a person's home value or business value, that in those cases, regulatory boards, I do not vote for members of the same household, spouses, children, parents, to sit on the same boards. I think it gives a bad image. But when you're talking about something like the Council of Aging, something like the 300th community, it's so important for people who've been so vital to our community, like you and your husband, to be a part of this. So I'm excited.
Thank you.
That you guys came forward. And with that, I will entertain a motion regarding the appointment of Deb Lincoln to the 300th Anniversary Committee.
I would move that we approve Deb Lincoln of 46 Hemlock Drive to be a member of the 300th Anniversary Committee.
I will second that.
All right, any additional discussion? All right, as many as are in favor of the motion, this is a roll call vote. We're going to do a roll call vote on this one because we have a remote member. So as I call your name, if you're in favor, say aye or nay, and that's the easiest way to go. Selectwoman Sroka.
Aye.
Selectman Dwyer.
Aye.
Selectman Franco.
Aye.
Selectman Alonso.
Aye.
And aye for myself. So please be sure to get sworn in with the town clerk, and then you guys are good to go.
I swear I will. Thank you very much.
All right, that was good. All right, do we have anyone else online? It looks like we have Mr. Scullin-Brini and Kathy Clark. Look at that. All right, so on our agenda, Kathy Clark is next. I want to say to Kathy and to Tony, thank you both for sticking this one out. I know that we had a long public comment period this evening. So, Kathy, if you wouldn't mind us, I already mentioned your name, your address. Would you mind us expressing your interest in this?
You're on
Can't
mute.
hear you.
Well, it says she's talking, though, but
We
We
can't
don't-
hear you.
It's
Kathy, we
she's
can't hear you.
unmuted here.
Yeah.
It's her sound on.
Yeah, Kathy, it sounds like it may be on your side. What's helpful in this case is for you to sign out of the meeting and then sign back into it.
Okay.
Oh, there
Yeah.
you go. There we go.
We heard you.
You're back.
Oh, she lives-
Okay, can you hear me?
Yes.
She lives in
Yes.
that horrible section of town.
Yes.
Yeah, I'm in one of those bad signal locations, so it's called my house. Thank you for allowing me to speak. I've been living in town for 30 years, raised my children here, opened a business here, went after our blood-sucking utility company here.
Hey, the
Sounds a
booth, can you
little-
turn the volume down a little bit?
Sure.
No, I was saying
Yeah.
to the booth,
not
not
you,
you,
the
Kathy. I was saying to the booth to turn, turn our
okay.
volume down just a little bit.
Okay.
But please continue.
Can you hear me still?
Yes.
Okay. So anyways, why do I want to be on this committee? Because I'd like to do it because it's fun, frankly. I'd like to contribute how I can in terms of helping from my business as long as I'm still in existence in a couple of years. And I did participate, or I did attend, I should say, the 2003 celebration and the 275th parade, and I was very impressed by the sense of community, and that's always been important to me. And I've tried to encourage that within my own family. The 2003 celebration included the New Year's Eve celebration, which we attended, and I have a lot of ideas in terms of that too. I heard Pete talking, I think, at the last meeting about some things that he foresaw and some ideas, and I think there's a lot of good things that could happen with something like that. And I know Lou's heard me talk about it, I think, at Economic Development. And I'm chair of Economic Development. I'm involved in our town committee as well. What else can I say? It's 9:30. I know you're all tired, and actually I do want to say too, I think the meeting that you held tonight was not just well attended, but I think it was nice to see it be so professional and respectful, and it really kind of shows what our community is about.
You're here.
So,
Agree. All right. So
answer any questions.
Yeah, so Kathy, always good to see you. Do we have any questions or comments for Kathy?
I have no questions. I think she'd be a great addition
Here,
to
here.
the group that is already there.
I will say that Kathy's very active in town
Yeah.
in many regards. Obviously, as she mentioned, she's chair of the economic development, very involved with town politics, is very involved in what's going on in the town as a business owner, among other things, raised her family here. So, yeah, she'd be an excellent candidate for a position on the 300th anniversary committee.
Yeah. And Mr. Franco, any questions or comments?
Yes, I'm an enthusiastic supporter of Kathy's candidacy to this. I've gotten to know her from being on the Economic Development Committee, and I already knew who she was before that, but she's a committed public servant and an ideas person. So those are two great qualities.
Thank you, Lou. Thank you, I appreciate that.
Yeah.
I do have one question, Kathy.
Okay.
Is Mike gonna come next week? Be appointed as well?
No. We would clash too much, Heather. It would be a real issue, believe me.
Well, Kathy, I always appreciate, you coming forward and getting involved. I think I have a really high opinion of you as a resident and as a person. All right, so it seems like we have no more questions here. Is there a motion to appoint?
I would make a motion to appoint Kathy Clark of 275 Crossroad to the 300th Anniversary Committee.
Second.
All right, we have a motion and a second. This is a roll call vote. Selectwoman, if you're in favor, say aye. If you're not in favor, say no. Selectwoman Sroka.
Aye.
Selectman Dwyer.
Aye.
Selectman Franco.
Aye.
Selectman Alonso.
Aye.
And an aye for myself. All right, you are on the committee.
Thank you.
So please go down and check in with the town clerk and be sure to get signed in. Sworn.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. All right, so now we have Mr. Scullin-Brini, who I want to start by saying, Mr. Scullin-Brini moved into our community about a year and a half ago and has joined the APDC. He's part of the Municipal Building Design Committee. Now he's looking to join the 300th Anniversary Committee. This is, I think, the type of resident that we all look for, who moves into a community and says, I'm taking ownership and I want to get engaged. I know Mrs. Scullin-Brini and I don't see eye to eye on everything, but I always enjoy seeing his face. So, Tony, good to see you. Anthony, good to see you.
It's a pleasure to be here, and I thought it would be wise to get this interview process over even though it's late, because I think next week's meeting for you all is going to be just as challenging as tonight's meeting was. So that's one of the reasons why I kind of monitored the meeting and stuck around and hopefully be successful with this interview.
All right. So if you want to just offer any information on what interests you in joining the 300th anniversary committee, that'd be great.
Well, you know, as a resident at 5 Valley Road in Lunenburg, I have truly enjoyed becoming a part and a citizen of the town of Lunenburg. Yeah, I've always been interested in history. There's copious amounts of history in a town that's approaching its 300th anniversary, and that was one of the reasons why I wanted to join the committee. Maybe I'm being a little selfish in saying that I think that I'll get a lot more out of this than maybe I can contribute to the committee because I'll learn a lot more about the place where I live. But that said, I do have some experience in centennial celebrations. I was a part of the Centennial Flight Celebration in Dayton, Ohio to celebrate what the Wright brothers achieved in 1903. And I think I learned some things from how you plan for a celebration that has some significant impact on a community. There's some things that you need to do in terms of making sure that you cast a broad net, get everybody involved. I love the comments that were made by our first interviewee this evening for the committee, and that is to reach out to senior citizens. But when I look at who's raised their hand to be on the committee and who's been appointed by the select board so far, we need to make sure that we get others, and we got to get some younger people involved. And that's a huge challenge, particularly for people that are, younger than me, younger than my son, who happens to be approaching that magical age of 40. What you end up seeing is how can a committee get the ideas of people who are really busy raising families, really busy being young and involved in a community. And I think that's one of the things that we'll need to do, is that maybe not have, someone who's 25 on the committee. Maybe someone will volunteer, but if we're not going to have a volunteer, we need to make sure as a committee that we reach out and get the ideas as to what a 300th anniversary party or celebration would mean to those people as well, and younger people. When you look at celebrations like this, you want to look in the past. You want to find out what good things have happened in this community, but you also want to look at those things that have happened that have been positive as a way to inspire the future. History is certainly a look in the past, but it's great value to a community is to say, that's what we did. How can we do it better in the future? And that's one of the things that I hope that we do as a 300th anniversary committee.
Well, thank you, Mr. Scullin-Brini, for those comments. Here to all of them.
Yep.
And are there any questions or comments from the members of the board?
No, I know that Mr. Scullin-Brini is an enthusiastic citizen, and I feel like he will contribute a lot.
Excellent.
I completely agree, and I support Mr. Scullin-Brini joining this committee because he brings a lot of enthusiasm to everything he does in town.
I will echo those. Plus, I'll say that I get the impression that he wasn't even fully unpacked in his house before he decided, how do I get involved? So hopefully he's had time to settle in at some point. But when it comes to getting young people involved, I agree with your points there, and I think they're well taken. And as far as getting potentially committee members, we'll leave it to you to talk to your son into it, at least to get the second tier, the next tier generation, and then we'll work on the youngest people last. But I clearly am in favor of your being nominated and appointed to this committee, because I think your desire to be on it and the reasons why you want to be on it are clear, and your enthusiasm is obviously apparent for anyone who's ever heard you speak. So thank you.
All right. Mr. Franco.
Yes, I just want to say that I'm absolutely thrilled that Mr. Scullin-Brini wants to do this shortly after in fact, the next day or maybe even the same night that we finalized and adopted the 300th anniversary charge. Mr. Scullin-Brini, expressed to me his interest, say, how do I get involved? And he's done that in so many capacities, but he's such an interesting person. I've had several conversations with him offline, just on the phone and what have you. And we're kindred spirits when it comes to an interest in history. So I think he'd be a great addition to this. I look forward to him putting his stamp on this. So I'm in full support, obviously.
All right, thank you. All right, Mrs. Scullin-Brini, you know where I stand on this. I think I preemptively gave my comments here tonight. Is there a motion to appoint?
Move that we appoint Anthony Scullin-Brini of 5 Valley Road to the 300th Anniversary Committee.
Second.
Any additional discussion? All right, again, we're going to roll call vote this. Selectwoman Soroka.
Aye.
Selectman Dwyer.
Aye.
Selectman Franco.
Aye.
Selectman Alonso.
Aye.
And an aye for myself. So please be sure to check in with the town clerk and get sworn in. And then, has the committee, does that designated a chair yet?
I don't think they met yet.
I don't know if you guys
I don't
have, you don't
think
have a
so.
quorum
No, I
yet.
don't think- yeah.
Yeah, I think tonight is when you probably will hit your quorum, hopefully.
Wait, how many people?
This makes 6.
Up to 13.
Up to 13, right?
So I don't think there is necessarily a quorum because it's an up to.
But they could start meeting.
Yeah.
Yeah, you can start meeting it.
Hold on.
Hold on. Wait, Lou said something.
I thought it was up to 11 members.
Oh,
It
so
is
maybe
up to
it is. Maybe I'm completely wrong.
It's 11 of
Okay.
But the fact that it's up to and it's not necessarily 11, so at this point they could start meeting, whenever. Now that there's how many people?
Yeah.
6 now?
6.
Yeah.
6. Yeah. Okay. So please be sure to get.
As a member of the last committee, we had anywhere from 20 people at a time. Oftentimes, there's a liaison from the selectmen, finance board, police from the fire. There's never 11 people
Yeah.
always meet.
So with that,
Those 11 have different charges to handle. 3 of us ran the parade.
Yeah, but you have to determine that at your one, yeah.
Yeah.
You guys have the ability.
I just want to. I don't want to repeat the comment because you're away from the microphone. So what was stated by Mr. Lincoln was that it's always been a lot more people engaged in this. That even though we're talking this core 11, that there's always you were just noting police engagement, fire engagement, other entities or agencies in town that you're also collaborating with, and you just noted that there were 3 people that helped coordinate the parade.
There's just 11 of us that are paid.
Yes. I get the big bucks.
Handsomely, by the way.
So, Mrs. Scullin-Brini, sorry for the interruption. So please be sure to check in with the town clerk and then get sworn in, and then we'll make sure that a communication goes out about the membership and how to coordinate for the first meeting.
Well done.
Thank you. All right, so tonight was a little of an atypical meeting in the sense that we really opened the meeting up to public comments as such. We do not have communications from other boards this evening to review. We do not have appointments this evening. We are going to skip over the town manager's report. Our discussion on ARPA is not primed for this evening, and so we will also look to have that discussion next week and/or on the 31st. So under current business, what I would urge is that I know it's already 10 o'clock. A lot of the committee reports are probably better to get on the front end of meetings, or not front end of meetings, we'll probably not give at 10 o'clock at night.
Yeah.
And so we will plan to do committee reports at our next meeting, and we will just put those kind of on the front end to get a couple of things administratively over with. One thing that we do need to talk about is rescheduling a meeting. So right now, we are scheduled to meet on the 24th. I want to hold this on the calendar. In light of what we just discussed tonight, I do want to hold this. It may be a good time for collaboration with other boards and committees, but I am not planning a regular meeting of the select board on January the 24th. But I would like to reschedule our regular meeting to the 31st. Does anyone have a conflict with the 31st? No? Nope. All right, so 24th will remain as a placeholder, so that way we have availability to meet with Board of Assessors, to meet with other entities if we need to, as a subgroup or as individuals. But our primary meeting will be January 17th, and then the next full meeting will be on January 31st. And then we will meet straight throughout, then we'll have 3 weeks in February to meet. So, tonight, where that then rolls us into public comments. So, town manager, any public comments this evening? I think I would expect that you might have a couple.
Just that the obvious outpouring of people attending tonight demonstrates the issue at hand. there's a lot of takeaways and a lot of research that needs to be done after tonight, and what our alternatives will be going forward, and hopefully have some answers soon.
All right. Any public comments from the public this evening? Yes.
P. Lincoln, 46 Hemlock Drive. Deb and I were the only ones planning to be here tonight. And this may sound strange. I'm proud of what happened here tonight. This could have been a volatile situation. Michael, I think you handled it incredibly well. I've been involved in a lot of massacres and school problems, but this was handled well. I think our townspeople handled themselves well, expressed themselves well. And what went on here was not anything other than Nuremberg at its finest. And you people can be congratulated for most of that. And our townspeople can be too. I was proud of this, even though it was a tough night.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. Any more comments this evening from the public?
I don't see any.
All right. And from the board? Any public comments this evening from
No,
us?
I don't want to lengthen this meeting anymore. The only comment I have, I just wonder if there's any way to know if this situation happened in other towns with lakefront properties. Is there any way that we would be able to know if the same kind of thing is happening in other areas of Massachusetts right now? I don't know if there is.
Yeah, I mean, I think
I'm
tax
just wondering,
tax assessments, I think, I asked the town manager, but I believe they're public record, so we
Right,
could
okay.
find out about them.
We could. Okay.
But I don't know.
You know, I'm just wondering if this is part of the problem or our problem alone.
Right. So I will say
You know what
this.
I mean?
I will say this. There are other social media that I'm on that involves towns other than our own, that are neighboring towns as far as, let's say, as like Boxborough or Harvard and everything, and Shirley. And there have been complaints, but I think complaints or concerns, and I think there always are this time of year, but I don't know that there's anything as widespread, right?
Okay.
No.
Okay.
All right. Any other comments this evening from the board?
I do want to echo what Mr. Lincoln said to you, Mr. Chair, for opening up the meeting and allowing people to speak. I think that is so important, so I thank you for doing that. I think it was the perfectly right decision, and it allows people to get off from in the open what they're thinking and what their concerns are, to hear the people behind the concerns, and without interrogation, and just let them speak. So, I think it was clear to them that we listened, and now we have to a lot of work with the Board of Assessors and the Principal Assessor and ourselves about what do we do about this.
Mr. Chair, so one question that I think we should look into moving forward, because we have a good comparison right here at Lake Shirley. What did the Shirley property taxes do? Because there's a number of houses in Shirley. Were they similarly?
On Lake Shirley,
on
in
Lake
Shirley.
Shirley,
Gotcha.
in Shirley.
Yeah.
Were they similar? Did they see a similar increase? It'd be an interesting
Oh, that would-
comparison
yeah.
for us to
That would be
take a
excellent.
look at.
That would be.
And by that same token, on Lake Whalum in Leominster.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Right.
All right, Mr. Franco.
That's a good point.
That was my
Yeah, just three quick and unrelated things.
Was it really? That's really, go Jackie.
I also want to echo what others have said about your leadership, Mr. Chair, in conducting this meeting tonight. It was a tough topic, and but it was productive, I think, and the townspeople as well as the board. I just think it was very well conducted, and it was because of that. It's going to bear fruit. So there's that. Just as a side note, I just want to thank Selectwoman Schroeder for covering the Council on Aging meeting today. And then also, yes, as far as I'm going to echo some things that I think that Mr. Dwyer's points about most immediately, seeing what Shirley has done with people on Lake Shirley, that's a place to start. Leominster on Whalum, but also, yes, to answer the question that prompted all of this information is absolutely discoverable. But I think maybe the path of least resistance is first talking to our own assessor's office, because they kind of know what's going on in surrounding towns. But then beyond that, maybe contacting the assessor's offices in these various towns. Short of that, you would have to actually go up and kind of you could discover all of this information, but compiling it would be, a huge task. So it's better to ask than take on that task if we don't have to.
Yeah, thank you for that. I want to offer a comment really to you guys as well. I think that what we saw tonight, I think, was a community that has confidence that this board is able to resolve their concerns. I think that's why they were here. It is a public forum. But even as I stood toward the exit as people were leaving while we took that little break, people were really thankful that they had the opportunity and that they really felt heard tonight. I'm sure that there's a lot that we're going to do. I would ask the board to, allow Tom and I to work with the town manager over the next really week or so to kind of work on, because we can't meet as three, but for the two of us to kind of work with the town manager on what this plan ahead looks like. I know that Tom has a lot of good ideas on what we need to do. And so I think it would be really helpful if he and I work together with Heather on how we can really address these needs. I know a lot of this is going to, unfortunately, fall on Heather to kind of do a little bit of digging, because it is kind of the perfect storm in terms of staff not being in the office and other issues. But I think that what we saw tonight was a community that's trusting, but trust is always, it's always situational in many ways, and it's always shaky. Yes. That, if we can't give and we can't, there may be solutions that people have in mind, but ultimately what we heard tonight was people really want information. And if we cannot deliver that information in a reasonable, timely manner, there's going to be problems. And then there's also financial questions about what do we do to help adjust this, if there is an adjustment that needs to be made, how do we do it? So I think that there's a lot of questions that we need to sort through over the next couple of days, so that by the time we meet again next Tuesday, that we have a better kind of game plan. We may need to plan for a select board meeting next Tuesday prior to the actual 7 p.m. meeting. So I will be reaching out to the members to see what your availability looks like on Monday or Tuesday for us to have a quick powwow, so that way we can make sure that we're on the same page of music.
Monday's a holiday, though, isn't it?
Monday is a holiday. We can't do it Monday, so Tuesday. And so we will need to have an opportunity to do kind of a powwow together, so that way we can collaborate prior to our meeting at 7 p.m. next week. So I will, again, tonight I think is, while we saw a lot of anger and frustration, I have to give my hat off to you guys as well as my colleagues. I think that we did the right thing here tonight for our community. And it's all of us, not just me. So thank you, Heather, and thank you all as well. That's all that I have for public comments. I know this meeting was a little, again, atypical. It is 10:06. Lou, I am way past our target, by the way, our target times. So I know this has been a through.
Is there a chat on the Zoom?
No, that's, I had asked them to turn on.
Okay, gotcha.
Yep. So I know this is past our usual target, but I'm glad that we set aside that time today to have the residents meet with us and speak to us, our fellow citizens. All right. I don't have any more comments tonight. The town manager is not, and so is there a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second.
Any additional discussion on the motion to adjourn? All right. This is a roll call vote. Selectwoman Sroka?
Aye.
Selectman Dwyer?
Aye.
Selectman Franco?
Aye.
Selectman Alonso?
Aye.
And an aye for myself. Thank you all for joining us this evening, and we will see you here next week. We will also provide an update if we are going to change the location of next week's meeting. Have a good evening.
Good night.